It's a very simple ceremony. I place a bowl of water in a clearing and I go to a large oak tree about 50 yards from the center of the clearing. And I say, okay, so it's time to make mountain lion. And the good news there is mountain lion's right there with me instantly. Okay. And the animals are like all in on this. They really love this work. They love me doing this work. They love to share. It's like they know that we are so messed up as a species. They just want to help. They're like angels, animal angels wanting to come in and like help. And so they're all in on this. There's never any reluctance or reservation on their part because, my gosh, we need their help and they're happy to offer it. Bless them.
Welcome to Living 4D with Paul Chek. Today, Paul is talking with Daniel Mapel. Daniel has a special closeness with wild animals, especially wild black bears, and his connection with these animals has led him to develop the Wild Earth Animal Essences 3 decades ago in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. His connection with nature and the earth has supported him to heal his childhood trauma and now to share the healing gifts of wild animals with the world. He travels extensively internationally, teaching about the essences and the precious gifts that wild animals offer us and that we can directly experience and benefit from through the healing gifts and support of the animal essences. A big thank you to our premier sponsors, Bioptimizers, Paleo Valley, and Organifi. We could not produce this podcast without their support. And of course, Paul only works with companies whose products he loves. All the sponsors offer special discounts for our listeners, so please visit the show notes page at chekinstitute.com/podcast for links and details, or just keep listening to this episode for the featured product and offers. Today, Paul and Daniel are talking about the animal essence of life.
All right, you guys, welcome to Living 4D. Today, our topic is the animal essence of life. I've got an amazing man to share with you, Daniel Mapel, the founder of Animal Essences. I found Animal Essences. I don't know how I found them. It could have been one of my students. I may have found them searching around on the internet. I'm not sure, but they appeared in my life, and I tested them out like I do everything. And the first thought I had when 4 or 5 of the drops of that stuff hit my tongue was my whole energy field shifted. And I went, wow, these things are powerful and they really work. And so I began exploring them, and I had Penny buy me a whole bunch. I must have, 12 or 15 of them. Just love them. And so then I went and read Daniel's book, and I just absolutely loved the book and the story of how he makes the essences. And I've wanted to have Daniel on the podcast for quite some time, and we finally arranged it. So Daniel, welcome to Living 4D.
Hey, Paul, thank you so much for the invitation. It means so much to me to be here and mostly to connect with you. This is awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. You know, I've tested a lot of products, and when your podcast gets successful, things just come in the mail out of nowhere. And sometimes I have a table just covered in stuff, most of which is unfortunately just junk, just get magic pills and stuff. So when I find something that really works, that I love, I want to share it with people. And when I read your book, I thought it was really a great book. And I love the part about how you created the essence. And my wife's a very highly qualified shaman, and I practice shamanism and many other things. So having been involved in energy work and a lifetime of Tai Chi and meditation, I'm sensitive enough to really feel these things.
Yeah.
And later on in the podcast, you guys will run through a bunch of my favorite of the essences, and I'll tell you how they affect me. But we're going to have lots of time to get into this with Daniel. But I'm super excited for Daniel to share his story, because he's got a really interesting story, and he does some amazing things with these essences. So you're in for an amazing ride. So Daniel, maybe you could tell us a bit about you, because I found your bio on your website super interesting. I'd like the listeners to get to know you and get a sense of what inspires you. And maybe you can tell us about your journey, your education, and what led you to creating these animal essences.
Yeah. Perfect, Paul. Thanks. So it's great to be with you all, and it's such an honor to be here, Paul. Thank you again.
Yes, thank you.
You betcha. It's fun. So, I grew up in a typical suburban family in the 60s and 70s, not an overdeveloped area. So there was lots of woods around. And I spent my life in the woods with the small creatures there. And, I got an education. I went to Dartmouth College. And when I graduated, I went to the Peace Corps and lived in West Africa for a few years and had, a fairly typical upbringing, very nothing alternative whatsoever at all. And then I had a couple of very profound experiences in my life, which really I call the two initiations that led me to do this work in intimacy with the wild animals. And I call them the initiation into the outer wild and the initiation into the inner wild. And the initiation into the outer wild is really my initiation into wilderness, into being with the wild animals among them in their lands. And this took place primarily in my late teens and early 20s when I worked as a wilderness guide in and around Yellowstone Park and got to spend weeks at a time away from civilization as we used to call it when we were out there.
Too true.
And in the land of grizzly bears and moose and eagles and all the great creatures of North America, where most of them were right there with us in Yellowstone. And it was fantastic. So this was a real time of realizing that, I'm not at the top of the food chain. There's the grizzly bears brought us a total different experience of being alive, where we really every day surviving is our number one job. And it was a deep experience of vulnerability and strength at the same time, and I had one encounter with a wild animal that really, as I look back now, I say, that was a moment of profound initiation for me to deepen my connection with the animals and serve the world for the benefit of them and humans and animals. I was leading a small group of young men on a backpacking trip in Yellowstone. We were along a river and we'd been fly fishing in the river in the evening, and we decided to set up camp in the dark, in the moonlight. And it was a warm August night. And we said, it's too warm to put up the tent. We'll just lay our sleeping bags out. And it was a thick pine forest. I thought, okay, we'll just put our sleeping bags in the trail. And this is like big mistake because, of course, humans use trails through the forest, but the easiest way for the big mammals to get through the pine forest at night is the trail. So there we are, sleeping bags side by side in the trail. And as we're just about to drift off, I see this big shadow coming up the trail towards us. And like my life flashed before me, I froze. I was sure it was a grizzly. We were in major grizzly habitat. And two things grizzlies don't like. Two things you never do with a grizzly. You don't never run because it can trigger their predator instinct. And you don't surprise grizzlies. Grizzlies don't like surprises. And this was going to be a huge surprise for this bear, these animals lying in front of him in the trail. And I froze. I held my breath. This animal came up to us and jumped over me and crashed down through the brush off the side of the trail. And we jumped up. Holy shit! We just survived a close encounter with a grizzly. We were sure. We lit a big bonfire, stayed up all night, barely slept. The adrenaline was through the roof. We were freaked out. And we were sure it was a grizzly bear. And we got up at first light, headed down the trail. It turns out in the direction this animal also went, because that was our way to leave the area. And then the most amazing thing happened, Paul. Not 200 meters down the trail, not far off the trail, just 10 yards off the trail, we found a large animal sound asleep at the base of a pine tree. And it wasn't a grizzly bear. It was a buffalo.
Oh, wow.
And so it was a buffalo that had come down the trail that we'd spooked, and it jumped over us. And buffalo are not supposed to fly, Paul.
I was going to say, you're lucky it didn't step on you.
Yeah, exactly. I'm one of the few people that can say they've been under a flying buffalo. So as I look back on this now, Paul, this was like a major moment of initiation. From that moment, buffalo was like so special, became even more sacred to me. And it's one of the first essences I made. And buffalo is like they're kin to me. So this initiation to the outer wild was really half of what prepared me to do this work. And when I was in West Africa, I encounters with many of the great African animals, and really that initiation into the outer wild continues to this day. This deep deep time that I spend in nature among the animals, which we'll be talking about more in a bit. So that's half of it. The other half was that prepared me to do this work is an initiation into the inner wild. And this is maybe even more important. Until I was 27, thought I'd grown up in the perfect family where everything's fine. Nobody's expressing any anger ever. There's always food in the fridge. Everything is fine. Even though my dad's a heavy drinker, my mother is emotionally unwell, and I'm smoking dope every day, but never before noon, because only people who can't control themselves and have issues smoke before noon. But noon arrives and I'm firing it up and I'm like smoking all day long. But everything's fine, Paul, right? Everything's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
And then
Normal.
normal. Then exactly. So then through a very bizarre series of things that happened in my family in a very short period of time, that myth of the perfect family began to collapse. And the family began to disintegrate, and I became freaked out. I was totally terrified because this myth of the perfect family that I'd built my whole identity around was suddenly crumbled into dust. And I was freaked out. I had to sleep with the light on at night. Sometimes I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. I was in a real crisis. And whenever I teach, whenever I speak, I always mention my therapist, Barbara, who was a person of grace who plopped into my life at just the right moment, as is wont to happen at just the right time for us when we really, really call for help. And she was my guide and my teacher and healer for several years. And what Barbara taught me to do was to make friends with these feelings inside that I'd locked inside and suppressed. And at the bottom of all that, the deepest wound was having been sexually abused as a young boy and never had anyone to deal with it, had to keep all that anger in there, all that shame, all that pain inside. And she helped me make friends with that broken, terrified, wounded little boy inside and give him the love and support that he needed to let those feelings out. Let out the anger, let out the rage, let out the tears and the tears and the tears. And she was like, without Barbara, I don't know if I'd be even on the earth right now. She was like my mountain. And she said one of the wisest things, Paul, anyone's ever said to me in my life one day. I was really struggling, really in a rough spot. And I was begging her. And I said, Barbara, will these memories ever go away? And I wanted her to say, oh, yes, Daniel, of course. And she looked at me with a laser and she said, no, the memories will never go away, but they will lose their power over you. Wow. And that's exactly what happened. As I grieved, as I let out the anger and grieved and let out the anger and grieved and grieved and grieved, the memories lost their power. And I became the person I've always wanted to be: joyful, free, connected with spirit, guided, and open to life in a joyful way without any addictions, without just open basically, no resistance to life anymore. And one clairvoyant said, Daniel, this is the reason the animals picked you to serve them in this way, because you know who you are, you did this work, and you're not looking to the animals to prop up your ego or to make you somebody. And I really believe that's true. My goal is to just be a humble servant. That's it. It's doing this work with the animals. I love it. It's a passion, but it's what I do. It's not who I am. And I'm really clear on that. And I kind of check myself every year or two, do a little check-in, make sure, how am I really doing? How attached am I to this identity as this guy who does this? Because people are coming to me and seeing me in that way. And that's fine. They can project whatever they want onto me. But that's for them. And for me, I'm just here in service. And I love it. It's great because I totally am passionate about it. And at the same time, I'm really unattached.
Well, I'm
So it's
super
these,
grateful, that
yeah.
you have these abilities and that you have chosen this path of service, because I take advantage of your gifts every day. I mean, I use these estimates. These are very helpful to me. I mean, I do a lot of writing and coaching clients with challenging issues all over the world and running businesses. And we have a farm and 14 acres. Like, I have a very intense,
Wow.
full life.
That's a lot, dude.
It is a lot. And running
Wow.
my podcast and the Chek Institute. And I mean, like me and I have two wives, Angie and Penny, like we're full on with two young kids and grandkids, whatever else. It's just like point being is that when I need to sit down and focus, or I need support for meditation or deep self-reflection, and when I do healing work with people, I use your essences all the time, and they're very, very effective. They're really a part of my life. So I'm grateful that
Thank you.
you do what you do. I understand you've had a close relationship with bears and other animals. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience of living among the bears and getting to know them as individuals and sharing time in the woods with them?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We live in an area that has likely the largest concentration of wild black bears of anywhere on the planet. There are so many black bears here because the food supply is so rich. We've got the flora of the north and the flora from the south meeting here in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. So there's an abundance of tree nuts, all different kinds for the bears to feast on. So the population is really healthy. And one thing about black bears is they don't have a very large range. They're very local. They might move a few miles over the course of their lifetime. So if you go back to a certain area and put in the hours and just hang out in the woods where the bears are and begin to encounter them and keep coming back and keep coming back, over time, the most amazing thing happens. Not only do you start experiencing amazing things, like we've had so many encounters with wild black bears, with mamas and their cubs, with mating pairs, finding a number of bear dens, including seeing cubs in their dens and so forth. All of this is mind-blowing, life-giving, joyful, cool stuff. It's like what we live for, really. It's like the greatest discovery of all is being among them and letting them teach us their ways. But then another thing happens that's even deeper. It's like so special that it becomes sacred. And that is that the bears because we're among them so much in this area, they get to know us as part of the area too. And they don't see us anymore as outsiders, but they see us as other regulars. We're not them. We're not their species. We're not their kind, but we're like the other species hanging out in the forest with them. And then it goes even deeper, where you've spent enough time with them and getting to know their character as individuals, and they get to know us. And because the sense of smell that bears have is phenomenal, hundreds of times better than a bloodhound. Their sense of, they can smell how you feel. So,
Yeah.
so we go in with joy in our hearts and love, and we smell good to them. And because of that, they're never afraid of us. And they're very gentle to be around. And black bears are really never aggressive. They might act aggressive, but they never harm humans unless humans are doing something really stupid to them. So we've had so many close encounters with bears, including where the bears come to us, sometimes for protection. For example, we had one bear. We give all our bears that we know names to keep track of them. And this bear we called Booty because we'd actually experienced her being booted as a young adult by her mom to be off on her own. And she's a very kind of timid, shy, very mellow, very sensitive bear. And we were in the woods, and she was approaching her brother. And the brother he's the opposite. He's got a mean streak that comes out from time to time. And he was really aggressive towards her. He attacked her, and in a really mean way, she squealed and she ran away, and she ran towards us because we were on the trail where she wanted to go. I thought, okay, I was with my son Gabriel, who was a teenager at the time. Let's move right over here off the side of the trail. And she came towards us and then turned and followed and walked with us through the forest for quite a while. And we were wondering, why is she doing this? And the only explanation is because she felt safer being with another large mammal that she knows and knows quite well. And we shared that half hour together as she regrounded and got centered and then was able to go on her way. We have a favorite bear, and her name is Gertrude. Gertrude is a mom that we've watched a number of litters over the years. Black bears will have cubs every 2 years. And one time Gabriel and I were in the forest. It was in the fall, and we were looking for Gertrude in one of her regular haunts. And Gabriel said, "I'll go this way, you go the other way." And so we were sort of paralleling each other, but maybe at a couple hundred yards distance into the woods. And she couldn't smell me coming because I was downwind of her, so she couldn't smell me, but she could hear this crashing sound. And all of a sudden, I heard a crashing sound, and this black bear took off away from me, heading off towards where Gabriel was, a couple hundred yards away. And Gabriel was there, and he heard this bear running, and then he saw Gertrude emerge through the brush, and she slowed down when she saw him. And Gabriel said, "Oh, Gertrude, did something scare you?" Well, it was me. I had scared her. And then Gertrude just walked with Gabriel through the forest together, like family. And there's one profound experience that I'd love to share with you, which is like the deepest experience of kinship that we felt with Gertrude. And we were with her one morning. We'd been camping in the area where she is. We got up at dawn and we were walking with her. We found her, and we spent an hour and a half just walking with her through the woods. She would be digging on roots, digging up some roots and eating them. And it was a peaceful late midsummer morning. And just sometimes she'd be 30 yards away from us, sometimes 10 yards away, very close, just very loving, great morning. And then this guy named Sam, who is a very unbalanced, confused man who likes to also be around bears, began to approach from the other side of Gertrude towards us on a trail. And the most amazing thing happened. She was 10 yards from us, and when this guy Sam got to 50 yards from us, she turned towards him, lifted up her head, and pointed right at him and went, and popped her jaws at him, which is not a sound you want to hear from a bear. This is a bear saying, "Back off, leave. I'm not happy with your energy. I don't like you here." And Sam kind of freaked out and said bye and ran away. And then Gertrude turned back to us, and we resumed our morning stroll.
Wow.
And I wrote a poem about this encounter, and in the last line is, "And at that moment, I knew that we were kin."
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is really the heart of the joy of our life, is being among wild animals. And we spend lots of time in the West, in Glacier National Park in Montana with grizzly bears. And in May, I'll be in Yellowstone with my family, with the baby wolves and the baby buffalo and the baby grizzlies. It's just incredible. This is what we live for. And I'm so blessed that I get to take my passion and my deepest love and bring it into my job, into my work, into my gift, into my sharing. Yeah.
That's
Through the
fantastic.
essences.
A friend of mine was one of my first students to graduate from my institute's then 4-year training program, Shane McDermott, is a nature photographer, and he spent several years tracking a white bear. I don't know what species, what family it is, but it took him a few years of patient camping in the woods and tracking.
Yeah.
But he finally got some pictures, and he sent me a couple of pictures. Yeah, it took him a long time. And your bear stories are reminding me of something quite interesting. I do a lot of investigation into the psychological aspects of my patients. And years ago, I came across a book of Native American Indian astrology, and it's all animals and fish. So where we have Virgo and that, they have the bear, the salmon, the jaguar, not the jaguar, but, maybe bobcat, different animals. But it turned out that I'm the bear when you do your birthday.
Wow, you're a bear.
So,
wow.
Yeah, so I read the bear, and it sounded so much like me. It was way more accurate than typical astrology readings. I was blown away by it.
Wow, yeah.
And I have your bear essence. So whenever I take the bear essence, I feel like I'm getting some of my own essence.
Your own self. That's great. I love it.
I grew up on Vancouver Island in British Columbia, and we had a 142-acre sheep farm, and we had horses, chickens, pigs, cows, goats, and my parents had a woolen factory. But our house was a bit higher up than the lower field, and you could sit and see down in the lower field where the sheep would be, there'd be 100 of them together, and sometimes bears would walk right through them. And of course, my father had them in his gun sights the whole time. But I remember one time I was looking out the window, and I saw a black bear stand up on his hind legs and just look around. And he was standing in the middle of the sheep, and the sheep weren't scared for some reason.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, they were just like, there's this bear passing by. So I used to get to see the bears moving right through our fields. And I've had lots of interesting experiences like that myself growing up, on Vancouver Island. It's very, very wild out there. Daniel, you've chosen to devote so much time and energy to working with the energies of wild animals and sharing their gifts with the world. Why is this important? And what are the most important things that you believe wild animals can offer us, considering how disconnected people are from nature and from the natural intelligence of the wisdom that Mother Nature offers us?
Yeah. It's a great question. When I'm among wild animals, there's a bunch of things that I notice. And one is, of course, that they are just present. They're like, to me, the living embodiment of being in the present moment. And they're grounded. They're here in the moment and fully connected with spirit at the same time. And in this sense, they're a mirror to me of what it means to be still and to be here. And this is the big problem with humanity is our human mind has like taken over people think that they're their minds and their thoughts, and the mind becomes the engine of our lives instead of like a servant of something deeper, higher, more profound. So when I'm among the animals, I'm reminded of that stillness and presence and being grounded. The thinking mind isn't necessary for any of that. And if we're going to create heaven on earth, there's really two things we need to do. And I see it in all the animals is we need to be well grounded and we need to be open and fully spiritually connected. And when I'm among whatever animal species I'm with, I see them being that, living their full purpose and potential without the yada, yada, yada of what if, what does this mean? Without the fear of tomorrow or the burdens of yesterday. None of that is present. They're just here. They're just here. And, I think of Ram Dass's old classic, Be Here Now. The wild animals to me are the embodiment of that. And so not only when I'm among them do I get all this juice and chi and energy and love and experience, but I'm like reminded of what's possible if I quiet my thinking mind, become still, and can just be, because that's what they're doing all of the time.
Hi, I hope you're enjoying the podcast today. If you've listened to my podcast before, chances are good you've heard me bragging about how amazing a product Bioptimizer's P3OM probiotic is. It's the ultimate secret weapon for knocking out food poisoning, and I found it super effective for stopping most anything that causes gut distress quickly. For example, a couple of times now I've eaten fish that was in the refrigerator a little too long and got bloating, gas, and intestinal discomfort. As soon as I felt these symptoms coming on, I took 5 capsules of P3OM and continued to eat 5 more with each meal, and the symptoms cleared up in as little as an hour from when I took the first P3OM capsules. My buddy Wade Lightheart, one of the formulators of P3OM, calls it the Navy SEAL of probiotics, and he's right.
Bioptimizers is offering you 10% off P3OM and all their other products. Plus, there are always amazing gifts with purchase. So to find out what these are and save 10% on your order, go to bioptimizers.com/living4D and use the promo code Paul10 when you check out. That's bioptimizers.com/living4D and the promo code is Paul10.
Do you have any tips? We have so many challenges with children getting lost in all the video gaming and social media, and they're so distracted. I remember years ago, I read a book by a group of psychologists who were the first ones to identify what they classified as nature deficit disorder.
Yeah.
And they took children as part of their research that had ADD and ADHD and other things like anxiety challenges out, and they were testing them and monitoring them and probably looking at things like cortisol levels. But they found that one field trip a week for just 3 hours in the woods and just letting kids just play around was more powerful than pretty much any of the medicines and help these kids heal. So I'm just wondering what your thoughts are. Like, how do you think from your experience parents could help kids or themselves using what you know from your experiences or even maybe your essences?
Yeah. Well, I think you've nailed it. Is we've got to help children stay connected with their animal self. We often think of the animals are out there and we're the humans and the animals are out there. We are animals, very domesticated, but we are animals. We are mammals. And if we're going to really turn things around, we need to support our children in being baby mammals. And baby mammals love to explore the world and learn at their own pace and make mistakes, fall down, get up, and do it without some supervision and allowed to explore. And nature is the way to do it. So, get away from the screen and get out into nature is the medicine. That's it. That's all we need to do. And a lot of the essences that I make can also support that. But the natural, all we've got to do as animals is do what comes naturally to us in order to be balanced and to heal. And looking at a screen is not that.
Yeah, no, I know it's the opposite. Yeah. The problem too with the screens that I find working with people and being an observer of all this is that not only do you get detached from the reality of nature and our actual roots of who we really are, but you begin to live in virtual realities in which you lose touch with the reality of the one you're in. I did a video for people in the public to say, hey, we got to be careful, called the danger of living in two realities. And the example I gave is if you have a garden in your backyard and trees in your backyard, but you spend too much time looking at the plants and the trees on your phone, you can forget that the ones back there need to be watered and cared for. And next thing you know, everything's dead back there, but that one on your phone hasn't changed a bit because it's not real. And so for me, I'm always trying to remind people, look, you can't, if you run the risk of losing touch with the reality of being human and being part of nature if you spend too much time in virtual realities, because you're living in your head and you're living in imaginary scenery, imaginary worlds at the expense of being here now. And so I really think people need to be much more aware of the fact that the tipping point is when you lose touch with the responsibility we have to care for the reality that we live in, which is essentially nature.
Yes.
And then if you cross that line, the first thing that happens is you start eating poor quality food and drinking garbage and staying up late at night, and you get further and further from the natural biological rhythms that you have to manage to be a healthy person. And I think that's really a big problem in the world.
Yeah, it is.
On your website, you share a beautiful and quite profound quote by Stanislav Grof, who I love, and I've probably read at least 3 of his books and used many more for research. I've watched endless videos. He's such a profound man. For those that aren't familiar with Stanislav Grof, he's one of the pioneers of transpersonal psychology. He was one of the pioneering researchers on LSD. He's a psychiatrist, and he developed holotropic breath work. In his quote, he says, in a yet unexplained way, each human being contains the information about the entire universe or all of existence, has the potential experiential access to all its parts, and in a sense is the whole cosmic network, as much as he is just an infinitesimal part of it, a separate and insignificant biological entity, which is, really what he's saying is we are everything, but we must remember that we're just a tiny piece of the everything.
At the same time.
Yeah, at the same time, which is miraculous, really. I mean,
yes,
that's
exactly
a magic trick to be everything, yet a very little part of it. On the little part of it, one of the things I've run into is people that feel very insignificant and get caught in existentialist philosophies and stuff. So the analogy I give them, I say, okay, let's do a thought experiment here. If you blow up a balloon and pretend that you're God and the balloon is the universe, so you have to pour yourself into that balloon, which is your breath. It's you inflating this universe. I say, now, people that say that you're insignificant often overlook one thing. So I say, now take a pin that's so tiny you can barely see the needle and tell me what's going to happen when you poke that balloon. Well, everybody says, well, it's going to explode. I say, good. Just don't ever forget that no matter how insignificant you think you are, you have the power to change the whole universe.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
I think that it might surprise people to learn that there are not any animal parts used in the creation of your animal essences. So, one of my favorite parts of your book, Into the Heart of the Wild, Healing and Transformation with Wild Earth Animal Essences, which is, this quote's also on your website, is where you described how you make them. Could you share that process? Because I thought that was mind blowing. And I think it's quite amazing that a lot of people are going to go, I wonder if there's animals in there, or, they're going to have their
Yeah, that's the
typical
first
reaction.
question.
But
Yeah.
to learn how you make these things, it's really quite deeply shamanic. And I thought that was really cool.
Okay, cool. Thanks for asking. So I make the essences in a ceremonial process, and my spiritual connection with the animals is the foundation of it all. And it's very normal and natural to me, and does not seem actually like that big a deal. It's very natural. I remember when I got the guidance to begin doing this work, it was like, okay, I can do this because I have this natural connection with animals that I've always had. And people say, so can you describe what that connection is like? And I said, well, can you describe what gravity is like for you? I mean,
Yeah.
gravity is like this fundamental condition of physical reality that is affecting everything that we're doing right now, literally everything.
Yes.
And but we don't give it a thought. And my relationship with animals is similar. When I want to connect with an animal, it's just right there by my side. So the easiest part for me is that there's no work in establishing the connection or channel with the animal. That's the easy part. So the number one thing, of course, when I make an essence is intention. And I have to be in a very clear place. So if I'm emotionally just not doing great or having a bad day or whatever, no, I've got to be good and I've got to be clear on what I'm there to do. And I always make one essence at a time. So these are tinctures. They're liquid tinctures that come in 1 ounce bottles, and they're drops that you can take under your tongue or use externally in massage oils or rub even on your hands. They're great to apply to the feet of babies and young children and elderly people and so forth. So you take them like a flower remedy or an herbal tincture. You can use them in a small glass of water. So they're a liquid. And I work with water, of course, as the carrier. So what I do is there's a special place in the mountains where I go. And at the beginning of doing this work, I've been doing it almost 30 years now. Next year will be the 30-year anniversary of doing this.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. I'm still here, Paul.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. Right. So I go there, but always by myself. And it's a very simple ceremony. I place a bowl of water in a clearing, and I go to a large oak tree about 50 yards from the center of the clearing. And I say, okay, so it's time to make mountain lion. And the good news there is mountain lion's right there with me instantly. Okay. And the animals are like all in on this. They really love this work. They love me doing this work. They love to share. It's like they know that we are so messed up as a species. They just want to help. They're like angels, animal angels wanting to come in and like help. And so they're all in on this. There's never any reluctance or reservation on their part because, my gosh, we need their help and they're happy to offer it. Bless them. So the ceremony is very simple. If you see it from the outside, it's not very interesting. You just see me spiraling in towards the center of the circle, slowly where the bowl of water is, maybe 5 to 10 minutes, just gently in silence, no drumming, no singing, just quiet. And then I get to the center of the circle, and it's at that point that the transformation happens. And as I walk in, my regular mind, ordinary mind starts to get very, very quiet, and I'm aware that I'm just a bridge. And this is how I see my job, is just being a bridge between the animals, the energies of the animals, and those who can benefit from them. And it's not about me. I'm just like an energetic bridge and link. And that's my job, is to be a good bridge. So as I'm going in, I'm very aware of that. I'm aware that I'm here as a bridge in service of Mountain Lion. And by the time I get to the center of the circle, my mind is as quiet as it can get with me moving. And I'm aware that this is the moment. And it's that moment that I lift the bowl and I am just with Mountain Lion at that point. And it's at that point that, as my son Gabriel said when he was like 7, he nailed it perfectly. It's at that moment that the energy of Mountain Lion joins the bowl. It's perfect. He nailed it. And I just hold it there for 10 seconds. And then I place the bowl down on the ground and begin to spiral back out in the opposite direction, back to the tree where I began. And my thinking mind comes back online, and I get back to the oak tree where I began. And for me personally, nothing has changed. I'm in the same physical place, same emotional place, spiritual place that I was in when I started. The ceremony's not about me. I don't get messages. I don't get guidance. No, I'm just there as the bridge. And it's later, same day, maybe a week or even a month later, when I take the drops of a new essence for the first time, that like you, having done this for so long, I'm so sensitive, I can feel how that energy of the animal is working in my energetic system, and it's always a surprise. That's the funnest moment of my work, is when I take a new essence for the first time. It's like, oh, I thought turtle was about that. Oh my God. And it's like, now I really get turtle. It's like, oh, now I see in a whole fresh way. So the heart of all I do with my work is this simple spiritual ceremonial connection with the animal. And now I make essences in different places at different times, not always in the same place where I originally did. And it's become clear to me that actually this is a gift I have, but actually a gift that we can all develop. You know, people often say, Daniel, oh, you have this special gift. And I resist that a little bit, because yes, I've developed this ability, but it's not Daniel's ability. It's just not. It's all of our ability. And my son Gabriel, who's just an amazing man, he grew up in the woods with the bears, never went to school. We homeschooled him and just grew up as a natural boy. And he he's a national park ranger in California and lives a life of service of people and animals. And he taught me something when he was 9 years old. We were out very early in Glacier National Park. Early in the morning is the best time to be out to see the big mammals. And we were walking down a trail just after sunrise, and he was in front, and there was a grasshopper hopping down the trail in front of him. He said, Papa, I need to make grasshopper essence. And I'm like, oh, cool, buddy. When we get back from our hike, we can do that at the cabin. He's like, no, Papa. I need to make it now. Give me your water bottle. It's like, oh, okay. So I gave him my water bottle. He stood up on a rock and he lifted it up. He closed his eyes. He lifted it up and he went, grasshopper. And then he said, here, Papa, taste. And I tested it. Wow, he got it. And what he showed me right there is anyone can make any essence of anything at any time, if they're clear, present, available, and know they can. So in one of my workshops, we do that. We make an essence together as a way of teaching people how to do this, because yes, it is an ability I have, but I make no claims to being special because of it.
It's very, I totally believe and agree with everything you're saying for many reasons. But when you do it, do you feel that, are you holding your consciousness on the specific animal? And do you feel like you're connecting to the soul or the spirit of the animal and opening a channel for it to move into the water? Because, obviously you're integral to the process. So,
yes,
you must be tuning your consciousness specifically to that frequency, or you would have an essence that you wouldn't really know what it was.
Yeah. So all I can say is it's very hard to explain because it's ultimately mysterious. But what I can say is that Daniel's pretty much gone at the moment I lift the bowl. I mean, he's there, but he's really in the background. And all I'm aware of is the presence of mountain lion. So it's sort of like, you can't say mountains lions lifting the bowl, but in a way it is. It's sort of like, it's all the energy there in that space is mountain lion. And in some unexplained way, as Stan Groff said, we all have limitless connection with every single aspect of creation, every single part of creation, while being the whole at the same time. And somehow, because of that ultimate interconnectivity, this works.
Yes. It's almost like a living prayer.
Oh, it is. Absolutely. That's a lovely way of putting it.
It's because the prayer of the love, the respect, the connection, and the admiration of, and the request for help from is channeled into the water. And, there's a ton of great research on prayer and even in quantum physics that would scientifically validate what you're doing.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
I just think it's so beautiful. And I'm a remote viewer, for example, and I let people know, look, this is not something that is magical and mysterious. Anyone can learn it. I tell people the first thing you got to do is you got to learn to calm your mind, because if you try to remote view, you'll go everywhere your mind goes, you'll go. So you'll be remote viewing in your refrigerator in 2 seconds if you're not careful.
Right on. That's
you know
hilarious. Yeah.
but the point being is, we all have these abilities. It's just for a number of reasons. I think, unfortunately, scientific materialism is disconnected us from the spiritual side of
You
ourselves.
got it. You
And
nailed it.
so everything's become an object, and the whole concept of spirit has been pushed into the background. But as I tell people all the time, and I've said it on this podcast many times, and the alchemists taught us this, 2,000 years ago, matter cannot organize itself. It takes consciousness to organize matter. And so what we really are is we are the consciousness, the spirit, the soul that's organizing the matter that holds our body together. And so these principles there's actually a lot of research that can be put together. My wife and I teach a workshop on how to access your power animals and your spirit guides. And it's
Oh, lovely.
very much the same mode of connecting to your power animals
Yeah.
and spirit guides. So I did a video explaining what these beings are for people on YouTube. It's like 90 minutes long, but I went into all the different aspects of it. But I just think I really am glad you shared that, because one, it's a very nonviolent, very love-oriented means.
Absolutely.
But look, I didn't know any of this when I first tried your essences. I just went into it blind, and I like experimenting with things. I'm an alchemist. I got probably 100 different essences, probably about 50
Cool.
different combinations of herbs. I've probably got 300 essential oils from my buddy Dr. Nick Berry, the essential oil wizard, who's a genius. And I'm always working with combinations, just letting my soul guide me. And I learn all sorts of stuff. So I just took your essences. I'm just going to try it. I was drawn to it, and right away I went, however he does this stuff works really good. I gotta learn more about this guy. So that's when I got your book, and then I thought, okay, I gotta have you on my podcast. And so I'm really grateful that you shared that. I hope people feel inspired to realize that they're a lot more capable than they often have been taught or told they are.
Yeah.
Daniel, though it may seem quite wild that a human being can work spiritually to create healing remedies such as your animal essences, I expect you're actually using the innate potentials within human beings in general, which is what we've been talking about. I'm aware that you offer training programs to teach people how to use your animal essences and possibly develop the kinds of skills that you have. What kinds of practices would you recommend for people that want to develop their spiritual abilities such that they could ultimately make their own medicines and heal themselves and others naturally, whether it
Good.
be animal essences or any other kinds of essences?
Yeah. Well, it's a good question. So, in order to be an effective creator of something that really matters, we have to be clear, and we have to have a clear intention. So we've got to do a couple things. We've got to do our house cleaning. I'm a big fan of emotional healing work because it changed my life. And I've seen how powerful it is when we deal with our unfinished emotional business that's weighing us down. So a big part is taking care of our unresolved wounds from the recent or distant past. Because if we're carrying that sack of stones around, it's going to be in the way, and it's going to keep us from being clear, being open, and being intuitive. And then the second part is developing our spiritual connection in whatever way that is, whatever way works for you, to find your way of connecting with the infinite. And ultimately a path that leads you to know yourself as the divine. So to me, the two great practices are doing the shadow work, doing the inner healing work, taking care of our human stuff that we actually is like a blessing. Like one of my Austrian friends calls them shitty gifts.
Yeah.
These things that happen to us that weigh us down, but they're the gateway to an entirely different way of living if we're able to address it and go. My therapist, Barbara, taught me the only way out is through. I love that phrase. So we've got to do that work. And we've got to connect and deepen that connection more and more and more. And there's no limit to that until we become Buddha or Jesus, right? So we got a long way to go. There's plenty of love and connection there for us to know even more of. So those two things to me are the great practices and that I still use daily in my life.
Yes. One thing I'd like to throw into the dialogue here is some of us come from very traumatic backgrounds. I'm one of them. And my brother committed suicide at 34 because he just couldn't
Wow.
heal the pain of our childhood.
Oh, wow.
And so that was
I'm
something I had to
sorry.
work for about
Yeah.
5 years to finally get to the point where I could be at peace with it.
Wow. Yeah.
But point being is, shadow work something there's a lot of great books on it. There's plenty on the Sounds True website, for example, on shadow work. There's Robert A. Johnson's work in his book on the shadow, which is excellent. He's a famous Jungian analyst. But when people have, really traumatic events like sexual traumas and physical abuse and abandonment, brokenheartedness, it can often take some guidance, like you had from a therapist, to learn how to
Absolutely.
go into these things. But what I think is very helpful, and what I do personally, what I encourage my clients and patients to do, is do it every day. At the end of the day, sit in your bed or somewhere where you can just be with yourself and just look through your day and just be honest and see, where could I have loved a little better or lived a little more fully or been more true with myself or with others. And then when you look at it, just ask yourself, what would love do now? And then if you just let that rise up in you and look at the situation, say, now, if you ran through the same scenario, but you let love be your guide. So if you had an argument with your mother or your father or your best friend or your lover or your spouse, if that trigger comes again, now that you've done this inner rehearsal, just remind yourself, now's my chance to handle this in a way that's likely to keep me connected to this person's heart. My point is, I find doing this shadow work daily helps keep us more clean and more in touch with ourselves, and we're less likely to depart from ourselves. A lot of people can't even look themselves in the eyes in the mirror and say, I love you. I found many of my students can't do that because they've got all this guilt and shame trapped inside of them. But I think just doing a little bit of this healing work, we call it shadow, we can call it just the residues of life or being human on a daily basis. It brings us into the habit of, and it brings us into the awareness of that we can heal and we can do it ourselves, and we don't have to go have a long discussion with someone and rehash it. We just sit inside of ourselves and just practice being real honest about how we could love ourselves and others better. And I find that's a lot better than waiting till you need a therapist.
You're reminding me of a Zen teacher I saw speak once. He was talking about war, and which seems like a timely topic today. And he was saying, where does war end? How do we end war? Where does war end? And he pointed right to the center of his very own face. Here. This is where the war has to end. And so many of us are at war with ourselves. And the only way we're going to create peace and heaven on earth is if we stop that inner battle and come to self-love and inner peace through making friends with all these different aspects of ourselves that we like to push away or deny. All these feelings, some of that which are very unpleasant, and just embrace them all. It's like, this is one thing I love about being with the bears and other animals, is there's no resistance in them at all. Whatever they're experiencing, whether it's pain or joy or fear, they're just it. They are that. And I've seen that with it being with animals that are dying. They have no resistance to letting go and dying. I remember being with our Gabriel's baby rabbit, Jack, that grew into an adult bunny, and he lived a full life. And when he died, he was on my lap. And not a half hour before he died, I was just stroking him between his ears, and he was loving it. He was just loving it, man, as he was exiting. And half hour before he died, I stopped petting him for a moment, and he lifted his head up not 30 minutes before he died. Just say, keep touching me, keep stroking me. So present, no resistance to death. And to me, that's the ultimate sign of being in the now, is death is not a problem. It's like all there is this moment. And even if death comes now, it's a good day to die.
Yeah, it's interesting. You reminded me of something I read years ago. I've got a very comprehensive library and I study a lot. And I was reading a book that happened to have a section on all the things that were learned that medicine now uses through warfare and like all what the battlefield surgeons learned. And they talked about how one of the projects Hitler had running during the period of the Second World War is he took, I think in this particular book, they said 400 or a bunch of German shepherds because of their intelligence. And they actually taught them how to communicate with a basic language. And they did it by almost like Morse code, by scratching on a wooden, like a piece of wood that they, like a plywood. And once they trained these dogs, they taught them, I think, they taught them 400 words so they could have basic communication.
Yeah.
And one of the questions they asked the dogs was, "Are you afraid of death?" And the dogs answered back, "There is no death."
Exactly.
And I'll never forget that. I read that and I went, that is powerful. I mean, you're asking a dog this, and the dog says there is no death. And so what a change of mind state.
Yeah. And it's like all the animals know this, that there is just one being, that their little limited self, a parent self, is part of. But when you know when you know you are the one, there is no loss with death. As Ram Dass said, death is like taking off a tight shoe. It's like a release back into our original state. And I love being around animals for that reason. Like wild animals to me are a mirror for a lot of what we're talking about. Like they're the embodiment of all this truth and just obvious truth about the nature of reality without this thinking mind making it all so freaking complicated.
Yes. Hi, everybody. I hope you're enjoying the podcast. You know, I love my kids, and I'm sure you love yours too. That's why I'm thrilled to announce that Organifi has just released their new kids line, Organifi Kids, with 2 initial offers to address the most common needs of children today, Easy Greens and Protect. I can't tell you how important these products are, considering that most children today are not getting enough greens to meet their nutritional needs, not to mention the fact that our children literally are our future. I recently watched an interview with Zen Honeycutt, founder of Moms Across America. She and a panel of experts exposed the fact that most kids' school lunch programs contracted out to fast food corporations, and if that's not bad enough, she ran lab tests on a significant number of kids' school lunches and found that not only was the food very devitalized, but that it was absolutely loaded with high levels of many dangerous pesticides, including glyphosate. As I show in my book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy, most of these pesticides not only disrupt normal hormonal function, they can also cause abnormal growth and development and are commonly linked to cancer, and we have the highest rates of cancer in children in history right now. Organifi's Easy Greens and Protect for Kids are made with organic ingredients and custom formulated for kids 2 and older. Additionally, these excellent, much-needed products are formulated for daily use. The main benefits of the new Kids Easy Greens includes daily superfood greens and gives your child optimal nutritional diversity, and the Everyday Nutrition in Kids Easy Greens fills common nutritional gaps. Kids Easy Greens is also formulated to support digestive health, which many children need today. The main ingredients in Organifi Kids Easy Greens are nutrient-rich veggies including carrot, broccoli sprouts, spinach, and beet, superfoods moringa and chlorella. Digestive support includes digestive enzymes, probiotics, and fiber. Additionally, Organifi's new Protect for Kids offers fast-acting immune support formulated for kids that is gentle enough for daily use. So with Organifi Protect for Kids, you can rest assured their immune system is always being supported. The main ingredients that Protect offers for your kids are orange and acerola cherry, powerful sources of vitamin C and antioxidants. Astragalus, a potent adaptogenic root used to support and boost the immune system. Elderberry, an antioxidant plant nutrient that supports the body's defenses against illness. Propolis, the bodyguard of the beehive, can help naturally prevent sickness and naturally modulate the immune system. These excellent kids' products not only taste fantastic and are low in sugar, they're very easy to use. Just add them to a glass of water or your favorite juice and stir. To get your kids the nutrition and immune support they need and deserve, go to Organifi.com/CHEK20. That's ORGANIFI.com/CHEK20. And on checkout, use the promo code capital C, capital H, capital E, capital K 20 for 20% off. It gives me great joy knowing I can help you find excellent organic nutrition and immune support for your children so they can be as healthy as my kids are. Ibrahim Karim, who's the founder of biogeometry. I don't know if you're familiar with biogeometry, but it's very, very powerful. And Ibrahim Karim's a very deep, spiritual, wise man. And he and another guy named Ian McGilchrist, who's a famous philosopher, and I think he's a neurosurgeon or a neuroscientist, they talk a lot about how, a lot of the challenges is we're living too much in our left brain. But Ibrahim Karim, who's also very tuned into animals, says animals live predominantly in their right brain, so they're always in the now. They're fully immersed in really the present moment to such a degree that there is just the eternal now for them. So I just put that on the table because I think it's quite a fair assessment when you study the function of the hemispheres. And Rudolf Steiner talked about the importance of not letting kids read too early or getting into math too early because it pushes them into their left brain.
Right.
And Joseph Chilton Pearce, I think he wrote a book called Biology and Human Transcendence. I may not have the title right, but he was a Steiner initiate type too. And he mapped out how the brain evolves in the child. And he shows that the right hemisphere is dominant for the first 4 years. Then there's a slow transition into activation of the left hemisphere. And then the brain starts to integrate at about 7 to 10 years of age. And that's why Steiner schools don't teach kids math or reading until they're at 7 to 10 years of age. And the school teachers are testing them to make sure they're ready for mathematical logical processes. But it really does seem that because the left brain is very much chunking things out of the whole and the right brain is really the brain of wholeness, when people get pushed into the left brain, they lose touch with how pieces of life fit together with the whole. So you end up with
exactly,
Wi-Fi that might be helpful for your internet, but it's screwing your body up. And you end up with all these gadgets and pills that are more dangerous than they are good for you. And I think one of the things that happens when we go out into nature or we sing, chant, dance, play, relax is that we bring ourselves back into that childlike right brain state. So it seems that a lot of people really could be doing, I encourage people to practice what I call unbound play, which is doing something that has no outcome objective. I stack rocks. That's how I do it. I go stack rocks and make big rock stacks and sculptures and patterns on the ground. And I don't care if they fall over. It's just an act of creativity. I paint, I drum, I rattle, I chant, I sing, because I know if I get too trapped in my left brain, I start feeling too wound up and it shuts my intuitive abilities down. So I'm throwing these on the table because I think these are concepts that people need to think about, especially if they're parents, because kids are being pushed into such academic pressure so early. It's unbelievable. Yeah. To talk now more specifically about the animal essences, could you give us a short overview of exactly how to use them? And additionally, can you explain how your essences can both help people with challenges or problems and also support us when we're doing really well? Yeah, so those are the two basic questions. If you have any tips for how to use them specifically, if there's ways to get the most out of them, and then how to use them for challenges and doing well.
Great. So they can be used with short-term use and long-term use. So for example, you can take an essence one time if you need a little boost of something. Like I have a combination called Supreme Confidence. It has mountain lion, bumblebee, and cheetah in it. And boy, if before coming on here, I thought, okay, I want to be strong, centered, confident going into this long interview. Boy, I took just one dose of Supreme Confidence. Perfect. So, and you can do that with many essences. All essences you can use in a short-term way for like once or twice or whatever in a day. But to bring about a deep change, a deep transformation, it's best to take an essence consistently, 3 to 4 times a day, ideally, for at least 3 weeks. And this allows that energy of the animal to work gently over time and go deep, and to help you either release something negative that you're carrying or working on, or embody some higher positive quality. And this is one thing I love about the animal essences, absolutely adore about these products, is that they work in these two ways. Animals can support us when we're struggling, when we've got a burden, when we've got a wound, when we've got a challenge, when we've got pain, whatever it is, those harder parts of life. And the same animal can provide us a gift of support with our spiritual development and expansion. So for example, Dove is the single best essence in the range for peace. So where there is an absence of peace and conflict, either in an individual where there's a war going on inside, Dove can be very helpful, or in relationships, in couples or families or groups, communities where there is conflict. Dove can be a real benefit with these problems. But Dove is one of the master essences of the heart chakra, and above all, for connecting with divine peace at the center of your own heart. So I use it all the time for spiritual practice, for connecting with the peace that passes all understanding. So here's two totally different areas where the same bottle can support us with a problem or a challenge, a problem, whatever we want to call it, and support us in our emotional and spiritual evolution when we're doing well. And I love that. And each of the essences has these gifts of supporting us with challenges and supporting us with our spiritual development.
That's fantastic. I really love that dual function, because people often are only problem oriented, but we can also embody more of the freedom, or more. I mean, you have an
Yes.
essence called Wild Freedom, because I've used it many, many times, many
Nice,
bottles of it.
nice.
And it's nice to know that there's something that can support us, not because we're broken, but because we want to learn to be better at staying in that state of peace, or in that state of creativity or joy, or, like Bear, getting things done, finding your way through the forest, things like that.
Wild horses coming to mind is one that's used a lot in its two primary ways. One is it's the classic tonic for the broken heart. It's the heart chakra master, wild horse. And
I didn't know that. That's great.
When we go and spend time with wild horses on Assateague Island, it's just like being pure love with them. Absolute, just love, 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 love. We love it. And so this is, as wild horses, when there's a broken heart, when we've been hurt, we close our heart naturally to avoid feeling the depth of that pain. We just shut down. And what Wild Horse says when we're carrying that pain is, it's okay. It's okay to open your heart. The path to joy and freedom is to open that heart and let that pain out. So Wild Horse helps people who don't know how to cry gently remember that crying is the body's natural way of releasing pain. It's the healthiest thing. I like to say there's a lot of things I do really well, but the thing I do best is cry when I need to.
That's
and
good.
that's to me is the sign of real emotional health, is can I cry when I'm sad? And I do. And because of that, I'm like the bear in the forest experiencing all these things. I don't carry pain. I feel a lot of pain, but it doesn't become suffering because it's not blocked. So Wild Horse is the master for helping us release our old pain or whatever pain we're carrying. And it's the master for opening our heart more and more and more to love. Because until we become Jesus, we can open our heart more. So I just love Wild Horse is always saying, it's okay, open more, love more, love more, love more. So it's a favorite. It's a favorite for its therapeutic use and for its spiritual, open-hearted path to love use.
I'm an art therapist and I teach art therapy. And the horse,
Cool.
the symbolic meaning of the horse in people's art is the horse is a symbol of freedom. So whenever I see a horse in art, I'm like, okay, let me see how that connects to issues of freedom in their life. It's interesting because you mentioned that. Of all the essences you create, is there a single essence that you would say is the most important if somebody could only afford maybe one bottle or one product? And what
There
would be
is.
the kind of the master key?
Yeah, the master key is a single bottle called Saved by the Animals.
Oh, that's a good
It's
title.
it's a combination formula that has 5 individual animal essences in it. So I make many individual essences, and then I make combination formulas that include a number of individual animals. And this is our version of Rescue Remedy. It's for crisis, stress, trauma, and it's also great for just helping us to stay in balance. And I love this when I'm working with therapists. I say, if you don't know where to start, always start with Saved by the Animals, because everybody can benefit from this, especially in this crazy transformative time we're living in. It has buffalo for grounding. Okay. And when we're struggling, we're ungrounded. So buffalo brings us our ground back. It has eagle for opening the crown to spirit. So a first chakra with the buffalo, seventh chakra with the crown. So for staying connected with spirit. Turtle for feeling safe and protected. Dove for peace in the heart. An elephant complementing the buffalo and the eagle. Lots and lots of grounding and lots of spiritual connection. So this single bottle is, I always say, whenever there's a big challenge, it's Saved by the Animals first and then add other essences to that. It's by far, if I could just give one, if God Spirit came tomorrow and said, okay, Daniel, we're shutting you down, but you can just sell Saved by the Animals, I'd be happy. Because that's the bottle that serves the most. It's our best-selling bottle, and it's the one we have like in the car, in my suitcases when I'm traveling. It's in every room of the house. It's the one we use the most. And I'll share just a couple of fantastic testimonial stories about this that are really show the power of this combination. There's a woman in Austria whose son was turning 10 years old, and he wanted to go to the amusement park on his birthday. So they went to the amusement park, and he was 10, and he was old enough to go on the roller coaster. And he's like, Mama, can we please go on the roller coaster? And she said everything in her body was saying, don't get on the damn roller coaster. Don't do it. But the boy was going, Mama, please, please. And she said, okay, I'll go. And she said it was a horrible mistake. She should have listened to her inner voice, but she ignored it and she paid the price. And she said, it was so terrifying. It was so bad. At the physical level, I thought I was going to die. They get to the end of the roller coaster, and she said she literally crawled off the ride to a nearby bench, got up on the bench, and she said she felt like she was in a million pieces. And then she remembered she had Saved by the Animals in her bag. And she got it, and she said there were just a few drops left in the bottle, so she didn't even use the dropper. She just drank it right out of the bottle. And she said suddenly, within 20 seconds, she felt all these different pieces that were shattered come back and click into place. Click, 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 click. And she took a deep breath, and she's like, am I really fine? Am I really fine? She's like, yes, I'm really fine. And she got up off the bench, and she went on with her birthday boy and had a great day.
Great.
So this is one of them. This is a really dramatic but potent, powerful story of the power that is in this formula. Another story is a doctor and his wife, alternative physician who uses my essences, was driving on a remote highway and came across a single motorcycle down in the road. And the motorcyclist was not moving. And he ran up to the guy, and he was in very bad shape. And he was able to get the helmet off, and the guy was quickly turning blue. He's like, his throat was really messed up. He couldn't breathe properly. The doctor was trying to adjust his neck, and he yelled to his wife, get Saved by the Animals from the glove box. And she got Saved by the Animals, and she ran up to the guy, and he said, just put a dropper right in his mouth. And she threw a dropper in, and within 20 seconds, the doctor said it was astonishing. All of a sudden, he shifted his head a little. The patient shifted his head, just like a micro movement, and all of a sudden, his breath started coming back, his color started coming back. And then the helicopter came and airlifted him out, and he survived. And the doctor said, I don't know if he would have survived without Saved by the Animals. So this is powerful medicine. And these 5 animals, buffalo, eagle, turtle, elephant, and deer as a combination give us everything we need: grounding, spiritual connection, protection, peace. And so this is a great combination that I use often, even when I'm doing well, to help me stay in balance, help me stay grounded, help me stay spiritually open, feeling protected as I go out into the world with peace in my heart.
That's great. I'm going to buy some and give it to my kids on the way to school every day.
Yeah, beautiful. Great idea.
I have a quick question that's not in our outline, but I want to ask you, could you tell me what the effects of the frog essence are?
Yeah.
I've got frog, but I haven't really had a chance to look it up. And I just thought I got Daniel here. I'm going to ask him.
It's fun you ask, because frog is the animal I had the deepest connection with as a child. There were lots of frogs in the ponds, and I would go frogging, and I'd love catching the frogs and putting them in buckets and like just watching them for an hour or so, and put the bucket back, pour it back in, and come back in and catch the next same frogs the next day. It was just like delight. But the energy of the essence of frog is all about the miraculousness of the transformational process that as an animal that goes through its life cycle. This, when Mary and I, my wife Mary and I, were getting ready to birth our son Gabriel, we took frog, because this was a miraculous moment of like unbelievable transformation happening in our lives, in Mary's body, this new beings coming to the planet. It's like, whoa. And to me, that's frog. So all about connecting with the deep miraculousness of the transformation that we live with every breath, really.
Oh, I'm glad I asked. I'm going to give that some test runs on myself. And
let me know. I'd love to hear your experience. Yeah,
I will.
And one thing I should say about that, and is that the applications I'm talking about, the essences, like the way they're used, these are like some of the most common applications. But animals are very energetically complex, especially the mammals. They're so multidimensional: strong physical body, strong emotional body. The mammals have a reasonably well-developed mental body, spiritual bodies. So, and that's manifested in the essence, in that each essence can work in lots of different ways. I mean, you shared some stories with me of applications of some of the essences of mine that you've used that are new to me. I hadn't heard someone quite use it in that way. So, and that's not uncommon, like, because people, so there's kind of like major areas, and that's what you'll see if people choose to visit my website. You'll see the major applications, but it's always good to trust your inner voice. I always say that's rule number one when picking an essence, is don't select with your mind, select with your heart, select with your intuitive guidance, what feels right to work with.
That's how I do it. I have a whole 2 rows of them out here. Like there's got to be at least 10 or 12 of them there. And I have others. I've a couple, I've bought enough of them that I've got like 2 of your case boxes. And so I just go in and I just ask my soul, which one do you want to work with for a while? And it tells me. So I just empty myself and look and let my control of my eyes go. And I'll say, what would you like? Because I might be making a smoke. And I'll say, what would you like on this? And then my eyes go to eagle or to praying mantis. And I go, okay, so you want that one. And I just get a yes inside. So I just let my soul guide me.
There you go.
And it works out great. Now, your essences can be a tremendous support in the emotional healing process. Can you tell us about that and essences that specifically support those with old emotional wounds? You've kind of touched on this a lot, but is there something for healing old trauma that you would recommend?
Yes. So there is a set of 7 essences that I create, 7 combinations formulas called the healing path. And the healing path is a set of essences that support the natural stages of the emotional healing process.
Oh, good.
From our need to go in and do our inner work and deal with our unresolved emotional stuff, and moving through and releasing the feelings, the natural feelings we have that have been stored inside that need to come out, so that we can let the past go and live a life of gratitude and wild freedom, as you mentioned earlier. And ultimately, the last one is communion with God.
Oh, I love that one.
Yeah, me too. Me too, bud.
I use that sometimes before my prayers.
Yeah, exactly. It's the ultimate spiritual connector for meditation, prayer, spiritual practice. So these essences can be used individually. For example, each formula, like communion with God, is a great spiritual essence for spiritual practice. And the first one in the set is inner work. So that's where we realize that, we've tried rearranging the deck chairs in the Titanic and this ship is going down. It's not going to work unless I go in and address the root cause of this addictive pattern, this unresolved pain, this recurring fear that keeps coming up, these negative interactions that keep happening with a certain type of person or whatever it might be. And we know we've got to go in and resolve this. And I am a firm believer that whenever there is a repeating negative, quote unquote, negative recurring pattern, it's rooted in some emotional hurt that hasn't been dealt with yet. And I've seen that with myself and others in countless situations. So inner work helps us have the courage to go in and face that stuff. It's got bat in it. I love the bat. Bat is the single best essence for going into our personal darkness. That's like, hey, I'm cool with the dark. I'll guide you through the dark. You don't need to be freaked out by this. And it's got other essences that support us in embracing the feelings that are there and that need to be expressed and let out, not just thought about, but felt and expressed.
Fantastic.
When we've been hurt and have not released the feelings in the moment, if we're hurt and can cry in the moment, there's no wound. If we've been hurt and don't feel safe to let that pain out, because that's what our animal body wants to do. If we are hurt, our animal body wants to release it right then. Deal with it, let it go, be done with it. But if we don't, and as children we often didn't feel safe to release the pain we were experiencing, we lock it inside. And I like to say, if it's blocked, it's locked. And it's in there locked, but that's the bad news. The good news is it can be unlocked and let out. So the two main feelings in my experience that get locked inside when we've been hurt are anger and sadness. And these are the two, there's others too, but these are the two big boys. So the second essence in the set is called healthy anger. And it supports us in embracing the anger we feel instead of resisting it or doing a spiritual bypass around it or minimizing it. No, saying, giving ourselves permission to feel and express our anger in a healthy way. And I've seen in many times how anger isn't good or bad. It's what we do with it that makes it good or bad. And anger can be actually incredibly constructive if it's communicated effectively. And Badger is the master essence for anger, and it's in healthy anger. And this essence is great to give as a single bottle to anyone who has anger issues. Either, oh, I'm not angry, I'm above it, I've forgiven everybody, but it's not true. Or people who are in jail because they're violent with their anger. It's the same essence. It's healthy anger. And it helps us to make friends with our anger, balance it out, and learn to express it in a healthy way.
Very cool.
Under anger, there is always sadness. When Mary and I get in an argument, it doesn't take us long for us to realize, oh, wait a minute, I'm not really angry with you. What I actually feel is hurt. So the pain is the deepest thing we need to make contact with when we're carrying an old wound and express it. And grieving heart is the third essence in the Healing Path set. And this is a master essence for grief. It's great to give to anyone who suffered a loss, because the only appropriate thing to do when we suffer a major loss is to cry. That's our mammal body's way of letting that sadness out. Let it out, and then it's finished for however long it takes. So to stay with the pain, and Wild Horse is the master in grieving heart. We talked about that earlier. Opening the heart, don't close it down, keep it open and let that pain flow. And let that old pain that we've been carrying, that we felt is not safe to feel, or we would have felt it, it's safe to feel it. And this is the big transformational moment. In my experience, grieving our old unresolved pain is the most spiritual thing of all, because our life changes like that. It's like we are vibrationally totally different beings when we're able to cry out that old pain. And the so-called external world, which is of course not really an external world at all, mirrors that back to us instantly. And the deepest transformation I've seen in people is when they make contact with our old original pain and are able to let it out through tears. And if they're crying and letting it out, it's coming out little by little by little. Not like you're in bed for 6 months crying. No, it comes out little by little. And I think with Barbara and the work I've done subsequently, I've cried probably 1,000 times, maybe more, but never like more than 30 seconds or a minute at a time. But each time, like my sack is getting a little lighter, a stone, a memory, I face it that I've been carrying, and I cry and it turns to dust and my sack is lighter. And I still have a sack, but it's a very light sack. And it's just got some pebbles in there. And every once in a while, I still have to pull one out and face it and grieve it. And it turns to dust. And you know what? Now to the point where one needs to be dealt with. It's like, bring it on. It's like a shitty gift. It feels bad. But I know when I release this pain and cry it out, I'm going to be lighter. I'm going to be more connected. I'm going to be freer. And I'm able to let the past go even more. And this is the bridge essence. The fourth in the set is called letting go. Powerful spiritual combination by itself, because this is what we're all after. Letting go of the identification with the small, finite, monkey mind self and knowing ourselves as one with spirit. So it's great spiritual combination for spiritual practice. And it's the bridge in this set from letting go, from dealing with this old traumatic stuff, painful stuff, and moving to this new life of gratitude, which is the fifth in the set. And I believe that gratitude is in itself a very powerful spiritual practice. So one can use the gratitude essence for that. And it's a natural result of having gone through this healing. And it's like the sun comes out, we can breathe again, and we're grateful. And we move into a life of what you mentioned earlier, wild freedom, where we're able to live and be the being we always wanted to be, where we're kind of able to live the life of our dreams, unburdened by that past stuff that we hadn't resolved before. And it seems like, well, that might be the end. Could be the end of the path, but there's actually one more step. It's communion with God. And this is like a whole new beginning. Because up until now, up until communion with God, it's been all about me, all about my pain, my story, the drama of my life, and my need to heal that unresolved stuff, and doing my healing work and my grieving and my anger work and letting it go and finding my life of joy and freedom. Great. All good. And a communion with God, that changes. And it's no longer about me anymore. If it's about anything at all, it's about we. And it's not like we're enlightened or awakened or whatever the word is that people use. No, it's evolution continues, but it's an evolution that is unburdened by the stuff from the past. And we're able to deepen in a foundational way. We know our oneness with God, while at the same time having a very human experience. And so this path takes us from this separation from spirit, where we're suffering, carrying these old wounds, got this deep work to do, yuck, guides us through it, supports us through it, to the joy, to the freedom, to the play, and ultimately to the connection and oneness with God.
Beautiful. Now, this description you've given on the healing path combination, you've shared.
A set, actually, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's a fair bit of information. Is there, on your website, or is there any place where you can get some instructions that show you how to apply this set, like over a period of time for healing?
Yeah. So what I have is a book I've written on the healing path. It's been published first in Paris, and I'm now looking for a publisher in America. But I would be happy for your listeners to just email them the English copy of the book if they place an order for something. If they're interested in the healing path, they can get in touch with me. I'd be happy to provide that for them.
So just communicate to you through your website then?
Yeah, and email me directly. I think that you guys will be providing my email address. I'd be happy to send that to them.
Okay, great. Well, I'll definitely love to have that myself. Hello, my fellow spiritual warriors and world workers. I hope you're enjoying this podcast as much as I am. It is no secret that today we are not only bombarded with so-called health and fitness information from every angle, be it social media, TV, podcasts, etc., but clearly it's not working. Many studies conducted worldwide show that children, teens, adults, and the elderly are the most unhealthy, overweight, and the sickest they've ever been. But it does not have to be that way for you. When I wrote my book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy, I researched the number of diet books available at that time, and there were over 5,000 of them, each claiming to have the right diet for anyone and everyone. But the reason I wrote How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy was because these books all overlook the fact that no two people are the same, and therefore no two people are likely to get good results on the same diet. That's simply fact. Another reason the myriad of diet approaches available today fail so often is that they don't look at the underlying causes that lead to body, health, and mental-emotional challenges. They treat the human being as though it were a machine, and all you need to do is add this liquid or that supplement, and presto, the machine runs again. These issues are more important than ever considering the physiological, mental, emotional, environmental stress and toxicity in the world today. Today, it is critical to learn the essentials of how to eat, hydrate, breathe, cultivate life force energy, and use your mind to create the life you've always wanted to live. This is exactly what you will learn in our upcoming Holistic Lifestyle Coach Level 1 training program, live with my wife and master instructor Angie Chek, May 31st through June the 2nd, 2024. This workshop is designed for anyone that genuinely wants to be healthy and is ideal for fitness enthusiasts, athletes, and parents. It's also a great chance to explore and see if you want to move into our Holistic Lifestyle Coach Level 2, which is our professional level training, and pursue a career as a holistic lifestyle coach today when it is so desperately needed. Not only will you be taught by Angie Chek, one of the most knowledgeable experts in holistic health in the world, I will make guest appearances and answer questions. HLC 1 on May 31 through June 2nd is a rare opportunity to take HLC 1 training live at our beautiful Rainbow home atop of a mountain in Fallbrook, California with beautiful views, and you get to enjoy my amazing stone-charged water and work out in my beautiful gym. Additionally, this is the only HLC 1 live scheduled for 2024. So if you want to learn from a true master in person and get your most important questions answered, don't miss this special opportunity. If you want to meet other holistically minded people and grow your conscious community, there is no better place than our live workshops. In this important, practical 3-day training program, you will learn how to apply the 1-2-3-4 approach to developing long-term body-mind changes and how to apply the 5 essential program design factors. Learn to use your Chek nutrition and lifestyle questionnaires for assessing physiological load and making essential diet and lifestyle changes. Understand the relationship between the 6 Chek foundation principles and body-mind stress. Learn how to apply the 6 Chek foundation principles to balance your body systems so you can exemplify well-being. Identify common roadblocks to success with diet and lifestyle modifications and gain simple solutions. Discover how to use the less is more principle of exercise prescription. Early bird investment is only $810 for this 3-day workshop if you register before April 16th. To learn more and register, go to chekinstitute.com/core. That's chekinstitute.com/core. I'm sure this will be a life-changing workshop for anybody that attends, and I look forward to seeing you all here at our beautiful home in Fallbrook, California. Enjoy. I understand you have a set of baby animal essences, the wild child essences that can support children. I think that's really needed today for a myriad of reasons. We don't need to go through them all, but I think we all understand that. If you're listening to this podcast with any regularity, you know why. And we've had Nathan Riley, who's our family OBGYN, very holistic and super smart guy. I've got multiple podcasts with him, so
Nice.
People will be hip to all that. But why don't you tell us about wild child essences so we can understand how we can support our children with them?
Yeah. So what I love about the baby animal essences is that using them goes right to the heart of a child. It's like they're kind of child versions of the adult essence. For example, the adult wolf is all about sociability and communication and belonging, feeling part of the pack of humanity and connected. And the baby wolf is all about knowing your place in the pack and feeling that sense of that you belong in the world. So it's the ultimate essence for kids that are going through separation and divorce, where they're wondering, where do I fit in? Where do I belong? My pack is going in different directions. I have two places. And so that's very challenging and disturbing for a child, many children. So the baby wolf is right there to say, hey, it's okay. I'll help you know that you belong in the pack of humanity. You matter. You have your place here, despite this big change that's going on around you. And each of the baby animals can support children with a specific aspect of a challenge and positive qualities too. Some of them are really focused on reconnecting. The fawn is all about reconnecting with the pure innocence of being a child. And the interesting thing is that the baby animal essences are used about half by physical children and half by adults. who are doing their inner child work in
No.
combination with like the healing path that we talked about. And I actually have a combination of 6 baby animals called Inner Child Healing, which is a profound combination to support people who want to connect with their inner child and help their inner child release these old feelings that have been stored from childhood.
Yeah, that's super important because, having been a therapist for 40 years now, the majority of the people I'm helping through some kind of a health crisis or life crisis, it always tracks back to unresolved wounds from childhood that ultimately is where we've got to go to free them from drawing these events into their lives. I think we tend to draw what we need to bring us in touch with what's not healed
Exactly.
through relationships and challenges, so that we can become aware of what is buried in our unconscious.
Well
Now,
said. Yeah.
people are very frequently always interested in what I use and what I drink and eat, so I'm sharing pictures of food and things like that all the
Cool.
time.
Cool.
But because we're talking about these essences, I thought I'd just share some of the essences of yours that I've used and why I use them. And then if you wanted to add any comments after each one, that would be cool. So for those of you that are interested in what I use OWL for remote viewing, for working in the astral dimension, and I find it helpful to support my clairvoyance when reading the energy fields of my patients that need help. Anything you want to add to OWL?
Well, it makes perfect sense to me that you would use owl in this way, because to me, owl is a tonic of the third eye, of the sixth chakra. So it's all about vision, inner vision, and intuition, and inner intuitive wisdom, and guidance that can come to us through that wisdom. So you've kind of nailed several different, your own personal applications of those very qualities. So great. Love it.
Like I said, when I'm doing different things, I just ask my soul, what should I use? And so I started kind of keeping a library in my head. Well, quite often when I'm doing this, my soul takes me to that. So I began to say, okay, that's my tool for this. And I just sort of, I've learned them that way.
Great.
Eagle, I love using Eagle when I'm doing research or putting projects together and looking for a big picture view on topics or issues I'm addressing. I like Eagle. I also find, interestingly, Daniel, I go through periods where my soul draws me to, say, Eagle for a lot, and for quite some time now, where I normally would have been using Eagle, my soul's directing me to Spider, which is coming up. But before I move on to Spider, you want to make any other comments on Eagle?
To me, Eagle is the master essence for spiritual connection,
Great.
especially for people who've lost that connection. So people who are not living 4D, but are living only 3D, Eagle is the one to give them, to help them. Because basically the only time I struggle at all, really, is if my crown is closed. I remember Gabriel and I were in the woods once, and I was just not doing good. I just felt like I felt like my crown was just really closed. And he's clairvoyant, and he can actually send the energies of the animals.
No, great.
And I said to him, buddy, he was like 10. I said, I'm just not feeling good right now. He said, he looked at me, he said, no, you're not, Papa. You're not doing good. I said, what do I need? And he said, Eagle. And he just goes like this. He just nods his head and sends it. And I just literally felt my crown go, boop, and I felt fine, like instantly back.
That's
And
a good
so,
kid to have.
yeah, like a resident shaman. I mean, literally, I'm sad he's grown up and moved out, because literally having him around was extraordinary. So Eagle is, to me, number one essence, just to remember for people, for spiritual connection, and for people who've lost their spiritual connection, or for you for all spiritual practice, whether it's meditation or prayer or some kind of your own thing, whatever it is. Eagle can support keeping that crown open and opening it even more.
That's fantastic. Spider is my favorite essence for putting outlines together for chapters, articles, bringing a variety of ideas together, creating slideshows or education programs, all of which I do constantly. So I go through a lot of Spider, but I love Spider. And Spider actually is my crown chakra power animal. So it's interesting
cool.
to see that
That's
correlation there.
Yeah, interesting. So generally people, I mean, what you're saying makes sense because spider is the ultimate essence for integrating things that seem separate. Of course, they're not really separate. So it's becoming aware of the natural integration between them. So it's really good for people who have to bring different parts of themselves together where they're kind of they're discarnate, they're not integrated together. So it's the ultimate integration essence. It's also, a lot of people have fear of spiders, and working with an essence of an animal that you're afraid of, while it might be scary to do, can be really transformational. Because if you're afraid of an animal, I got news for you. It's not about the animal. It's about you. It's about something you're projecting onto the animal that you've got to kind of reclaim for yourself. And working with the essence can really help balance that out. I remember one woman in a workshop in Norway, she had a terrible fear of spiders. And we did a shadow meditation where people picked their shadow, like the animal they're afraid of. And she picked spider, and she had a really safe, good connection with spider. And the next morning, the second day of the workshop, she's brushing her teeth in the morning. And as she's brushing her teeth, a spider drops down right between her eyeballs and the mirror. And she didn't freak out. It was like,
That's great.
oh, spiders, okay. And I hear that. I had a woman recently with snake at a workshop who had terrible fear of snake her whole life. And it shifted by working with the essence. So that's another way of working with essences, is to pick essences that you love, pick essences that can support you in challenges you're facing, pick essences that have qualities that you want to embody, and pick essences of animals that you're afraid of.
Yes. Crow and raven, I love using crow or raven when I'm communicating directly with the souls of others that I'm working with in some way. And when I'm working with people in the afterlife, such as teachers that guide me, I do a too many times to count. I've had people that maybe come to me with heart conditions or breathing disorders or anxiety and panic issues. And I track it back to unresolved grief about the loss of a loved one, like maybe their mother or their father died or their
Interesting.
dog died. And so I find that crow and raven, my soul selects that when I'm doing that kind of work, which is, how I've been supported by them. Is there any comments on
Great.
those?
Yeah, I love them. They're like little brother and big brother. Like Crow is all, to me, great for people, again, who are stuck in the 3D world. Crow is like, open your eyes, open your ears. All is not as it appears. Things
Yeah.
are way, way more interesting, wilder, and beautiful than we're aware of. And Crow is like the door opener to that level of awareness. And I like to say Raven is like Crow on steroids. Raven is like, I don't use the word shamanic a lot. It's not a word that I resonate with a lot, but in this case with Raven, that word pops into my head. It's really about an altered, I can't even speak about it other than it takes us it has the potential to take us to a very, very profound awareness of the nature of creation.
Yeah, it's probably the most sacred bird of all amongst the Haida Indians.
Yeah, right.
I grew up on Vancouver Island, and there's a lot of Haidas there, and they really have a deep love and reverence for the raven. In fact, they say if you kill a raven, you'll have 500 years of deep challenges
Wow,
as
I've
a
never heard that. That's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, they
I
say
love that.
if you shoot or kill a raven, you'll be paying for it for 500 years. That's what their belief
Wow,
system is.
great. I
It was
love it.
one time my dad, when I was a kid, wanted to show me how smart ravens were,
Mm.
and there was a big raven that used to sit in our barnyard, which is a big barnyard, probably half an acre. And there's a
Mm.
lot. We had a lot of really tall trees on our 142 acres was forest. And this big black raven used to sit probably 150 feet up this Douglas fir tree. And my dad said to me, "You see that raven up there?" And he was so far away. I mean, he just looks like a
Right.
small, black dot sitting up on this tree. And my dad said, "Come over here." So he walked me over to the door of the barn, and we had rifles in near every door of the barns because we had a lot of problems with rats. So we would always have to shoot the rats because they kept eating our feed until we got smart and bought 9 cats, and that cleared them out. But my dad said, "Okay, watch the raven." And he slowly reached in, grabbed the shotgun. And as soon as that came out the door, the raven took off. And any time that raven was there, if you brought that gun out, he would fly away. He'd sit there for hours. But as soon as he saw the gun, he knew time to get out of here.
Yeah. They're really intelligent. Wow.
Yeah. Praying mantis I use
Mm,
before
mm.
Tai Chi, drumming, rattling, prayer, or meditation.
Oh, I
Uh,
love it.
I never looked up. Most of these I haven't looked up. I just let my soul guide me. You want to add any comments on praying mantis?
Yeah, I mean, it's all of those things are that you described are spiritual practices where you're devoting yourself to that which is greater than you, right?
Yes.
And this is the key word for praying mantis is like spiritual devotion. So, it's like ultimately we are one, we are the divine, and yet at the same time we're this microcosm that needs to acknowledge the two-ness of us and spirit. And praying mantis is one of the essences that really supports us in doing that, in surrendering and devoting ourselves and every action and every breath to spirit.
Mm. Great. Next is gratitude. I gravitate toward gratitude first thing when I come to work in the morning and do my prayers and start my day. I use
Mm.
it when I'm feeling challenged in relationships or saddened for some reason. I find it brings me into a state where it's easier for me to rise above what is causing any disconnection in me and helps me feel more a deeper connection in my prayer. I really love gratitude. From the first time I tried it, it was like a friend to me.
Oh, nice, nice.
So, any comments you have on gratitude would be great.
It is a profound spiritual practice. And I love in this essence, we have praying mantis that we
Oh,
just discussed for this devotion. And we
great.
have buffalo and wild turkey.
Oh, I didn't realize that. That's great.
Yeah. And so, but they're both essences of tremendous being grateful for everything, like for breathing. Like this, we are like living a miracle that we get so numb and closed. We like life becomes ordinary. But to me, like the biggest miracle of life every day is at the end of the day, I'm freaking exhausted, and I crawl into bed and I close my all I do is close my eyes and then I open my eyes 8 hours later and I have all my energy back. I mean, this is freaking amazing. That this should be like on the headline news every day.
Yes.
Like we are living a miracle every single explain to me anywhere else where that happens in the universe. That's not the way energy works typically in the 3D realm at all. Instant renewal. So this is like the buffalo and wild turkey help me in the gratitude combination, help me to remember that every breath is something to be grateful for, that nothing should be taken for granted. Like oftentimes when I'm like peeing, it's like it's so pleasurable and I can be so grateful that I'm just on this earth feeling this pleasure of having a good pee. It's like, why not, right? Like
Yeah.
we can be grateful for everything. And it's the ultimate, to me, really, maybe one of the greatest prayers of all is just thank you, thank you, thank you. Mantra, thank you. Yeah.
I love to pee in my garden and on my fruit trees. And
Yeah, great,
often,
fantastic.
often when my friends come over and they try our fruit, they go, "Oh man, this is such a good peach or pear or whatever." And I go, "Oh, it's probably good because I pee on it all the time."
Exactly.
They go, "Oh, cool, it
Perfect.
tastes good."
Yeah, right.
So funny. Deer essence, I find great before going to the gym. I feel more alert. Like,
Interesting.
I don't know how to describe it. It's something I would use when I'm feeling a little soggy, like I'm not in myself.
Hmm.
Like when you're
Interesting.
tired and you need
Cool.
help. But that's just the
Wow.
experience I've had of it. I've actually used it a couple of times where I felt like almost like I'd been doing a bunch of Tai Chi and I was like picked up by it quite strongly too.
Mm, I love this because this is a classic example of where your experience is something. You've been doing this for 30 years. Deer was one of the first ones I made 30 years ago, and I've never heard it described quite that way. which is a perfect example about how these essences can work in different people in different ways. So generally, the kinds of things, experiences that people have with deer are awareness. Like number one, like being aware of what's going on, and also being aware in a deep way of like awareness at the deep awareness with a capital A, spiritual aware, being aware of the nature of the one and the many being this great mystery. And it's also a great essence for gentleness and sweetness. And yet I love your application of it too. And this is where trusting one's inner voice. You're a living example of what I teach, which is trust your inner voice. Don't pick with your head, pick with your heart and your intuition and see what happens. Great. Love it.
Yeah, that's living in the Tao, really.
Mhm.
Butterfly, I love later in the day, or if I'm feeling heavy emotions or helping clients work through challenging situations. I find it has a lightening effect on my spirit. The butterfly is one of my four chakra power animals as well.
Oh, nice. Oh, good.
And so I don't know. I hadn't used it in a while, and then I was restocking the other day and found I had a bottle and a new bottle. I thought, oh, I got to get back to butterfly. But it really, I think the best way I could describe it is, you know, when you get a gift like at Christmas or on your birthday, and there's that joy of opening the package, that like, oh wow, there's going to be something cool in here. When I take butterfly, it's like I feel like I'm being unwrapped and I'm opening up some kind of surprise. You know, it's a very
Nice.
interesting feeling.
That's a unique one too, and I love it. I mean, butterfly has this innate physical lightness. So that's part of what's coming through there for sure is this, this like just riding on the wind of joy, really. But the deeper the deepest experience that most people have with butterfly, and what I often say, is that this is one of the two great essences for change and transformation. Well, again, with the life cycle that it goes through. And snake is the other one. And butterfly is a great essence to give people at the beginning of end of life. When Gabriel was 2 weeks old, he was in bed with us, and it was the first time he wasn't sleeping well. He was fitful, and Mary and I tuned into him, and it's like, oh, he's growing. He's eating so much. He's like growing like a monster. You can almost watch him grow. He needs butterfly. And I put the drops of butterfly into his feet right away that night, and he immediately settled. And that became a sleep tonic for the first several years of his life. And it's also a great essence to give to people at the end of life. There's no greater gift you can give a dying person than to rub butterfly drops into their feet. One
Great.
man in Germany, his dad was dying, and it was at home, and of course it was all, of course, very sad, but it was very natural what was happening. And he said that the son said all of a sudden it felt like the process just stopped, like he was getting close to dying, to going, and it just stopped, like a light switch went off. And he remembered butterfly, and he got the butterfly drops and put them in his father's feet. And he said all of a sudden it's like a light switch went on, and the process resumed, and not long after, the old man departed peacefully. So butterfly is great for supporting change, and snake is a whole different beast when it comes to change. This is the deepest level of change and transformation. When you take snake, you never know what's going to happen. But if you take snake for 3 weeks, something big's going to happen. So I always say snake, more than any other essence, is one that deserves to be taken with great respect. And the way you show that respect is by making sure you have the time in your life as you're taking it during these weeks to attend to what comes up, because something's going to happen. Some people feel this like, I'm shedding these old skins and it's a piece of cake and it's great and it's energetic and it's wow. And other people are plunged into this shadow work where they really need the time and attention and care to attend to this deep, unresolved stuff that's getting stirred up by snake. So I say butterfly you can give to anyone at any time. And if everyone on the planet took butterfly today, I'd be thrilled. With snake, I'd be thrilled, but I'd be a little like, uh-oh, what's going to happen now?
Yeah, your UPS delivery guy breaks down into tears in your front yard. I've been on snake for 2 weeks. Bobcat's probably the one I use the most. I love it when I'm painting. I find it helps me keep my brush more stable. when I'm doing fine lines.
Yes.
I like to vaporize marijuana when I paint, but it can leave me a bit dreamy. So I find
Sure.
if I add butterfly to my herbs and marijuana, it brings me right back into, I get the benefits of the expansion and the creative inflow of the marijuana, but it's almost like it brings my consciousness to a focus. So I don't
Focus.
I don't
That's
have
it.
the fuzziness of the pot, but I've got the opening of the pot, but the bobcat tunes it right
That's
up.
cool.
It's kind of like when you know how when your windshield's dirty and it can be hard to look through
Yeah.
and you wash it and you're like, "Oh my god, I can see again," and it just takes pressure out of your head because you can see. Bobcat cleans the windshield for me.
That's perfect. I love that. I mean, that's classic Bobcat right there. Just pure, like bringing all the focusing down to almost like a laser point of clarity. So it's really good for people who have lost focus, whose minds are all over the place, or like you, who want to focus specifically on something.
I find it helpful too because I get so damn much email. It's easy to get caught in black holes with email
Yeah, I know
and
the
like,
feeling.
okay, should I respond to this? Should I even read this? So I find if I take Bobcat before I engage my email, I can get through it a lot quicker.
I have never done that. I'm going to try that. That's
Yeah, it's
really
actually
good.
helpful. It keeps me discernment. It gives me more discernment.
Yeah. I take it when I'm doing my taxes.
Hopefully you don't have to do that too often.
Right, exactly. Right. Yeah. Another one I use a lot around the house is Cheetah.
I haven't
Cheetah
tried
is
that.
great. I love it for housework because cheetahs are fast and they're efficient. You know, they're
Yeah.
basically a muscle. They're not able to store much fat at all. So they have to be super efficient in their hunting and their movements. They don't waste energy. They're either lying down or they're hunting, basically. So what I love is doing housework with cheetah. I'm fast and I'm so efficient. Like super, no movement is wasted. So that's just another random example of a useful application of one of these acids.
I'm going to buy a bottle of Cheetah because I do the dishes at night. So that's my way of
I'm
alleviating
curious.
Penny
Tell me.
from
Let me know.
all the extra stress. Because she puts Mana to sleep and Angie puts Zoe to sleep. So if she comes down and has a pile of dishes, it's just tiring for her. So I put on my love boots and do the dishes, which there can be a lot of. So I'm going to try the Cheetah for
Great.
dishwashing.
Yes, exactly.
Hi, everybody. I hope you're enjoying the show. You know, people worldwide are not only finding it hard to find organic and free-range, regeneratively farmed animal foods, but as you surely know, it's almost impossible to find anything worth eating in stores, airports, gas stations, or even in the stores that should have real food. Additionally, most children are sent to school to eat microwave-processed, chemically raised, and chemically laden garbage from school cafeterias or out of their lunchbox, simply because most parents just aren't aware of the dangers of commercial food. But the truth is, there are no shortcuts to health and wellness. Unless, of course, you let Paleo Valley do the work for you. Autumn Smith, founder of Paleo Valley, is not only a mother who understands the importance of feeding children wholesome, clean foods, but is a holistic nutritionist who pours her soul into all Paleo Valley products, and Paleo Valley's meat sticks are made from regeneratively farmed animals that are raised with the highest possible standards of care. Paleo Valley's meat sticks are also fermented, which significantly enhances the nutritional quality and flavor of them. My family and I love them and carry them everywhere we go, be it during rides in the car, outings, ski trips, or we put them in the kids' lunchbox and they love them. In fact, many people I know resort to them as a meal when time is tight on the road or traveling by air. I know of no better portable food or snack food anyone can eat without losing quality or satisfaction, and we love sharing them with our guests and students at our Rainbow workshops. Paleo Valley's meat sticks come in beef, turkey, and pork maple bacon flavor. To get your meat sticks, go to PaleoValley.com. That's paleovalley.com. To save 15% on your purchase, use the code capital C, capital H, capital E, capital K, 15. That's Chek 15 at checkout. And while you're there, check out Paleo Valley's other excellent foods and whole food supplement offerings, and your body and your family will love you for it. Enjoy Paleo Valley. I know I sure do. Now, I'd love it if, for the listener, if you could just share some tips of essences for some of the common issues people have. So I put a list of them together here.
Okay, sounds good.
Maybe I can sate the challenge and you can blast the essences out.
Sure.
General stress management.
You're going to hear this a lot. Saved by the animals, for sure. Plus, sloth for slowing down.
Oh, cool.
Sloth is the ultimate essence for coming almost to a full stop, but still being able to, still functioning.
Okay, cool. Calming or focusing the mind.
Bobcat and tiger. Tiger's
cool.
the man. I call Tiger the Zen master. First time I took Tiger, whoop, my mind just went like a blank white, but aware at the same time. Not empty, fully aware, but still.
I haven't tried Tiger. I'll get some of that. Resolving conflict or trauma. We've talked about that. This sounds like maybe your
healing path and inner child healing.
Yeah. Okay, good.
And the babies. Yeah. And the babies. Yeah.
Right. Feeling more connected to life or the earth and nature.
Jaguar.
Oh, neat. I haven't tried that.
Jaguar is first time I took Jaguar, Paul, I was walking through the woods by myself, just like a normal day, nothing special going on inside or outside. And I decided, okay, I've got the Jaguar. Here we go. Took the drops and boom. All of a sudden, it's like, I'm not in the forest. No, I am the forest. Like, I'm one with the forest. So it's the number one essence for connecting with nature, knowing yourself as one with Gaia. It's great for people who are stuck in urban environments, which is unfortunately most of the human population now. Yeah. So city dwellers, Jaguar. City kids, Jaguar.
Cool. Healing anxiety or depression?
Saved by the Animals. Plus, especially for depression, some people have really good success with communion with God, because communion with God is opening that crown. And when we're depressed, that crown is closed. And even if that crown can get open just a little bit, there's relief.
Good.
It's like, there's a little light at the end of the tunnel. So yeah, Saved by the Animals and communion with God.
Great. Enhancing personal and intimate relationships.
Good. So I have a set of love essences called the sharing love combinations. And each of them supports us in feeling and expressing love in different areas of our lives. So there's one called loving relationship, which supports us if we're not in a relationship and want to create one, or if we're in one and want to be there even more. So loving relationship is a great relationship combination. And Swan is the single best essence for lovemaking and being with your partner as a divine being and sharing that as mirrors for each other.
Oh, great.
Swan is great. Yeah.
That sounds cool. Enhancing one's capacity to communicate their wants, feelings, and needs to themselves or others.
Yeah, so wolf is the great sociability essence. I used to hate going to parties. It's like, what the hell? Go to parties, people drink and smoke, and they're just talking about nothing. Like, why? And then I realized, I'm going to take wolf. And, I love parties now, because that's the whole point. We're social mammals.
Yeah.
We're like, you just go sniff each other's butts and enjoy being together, right? It's like, so wolf is great for people who have social phobia, for people who feel socially isolated, for people who don't like being around other people, for people who think humans are bad, for people who have humanity interrelationship issues and communicating. And in relationships, wolf is the essence of total bonding and in integrity and communicating with that.
That's
so
cool.
Wolf is the one that comes to mind right now. Yeah.
Improving self-confidence.
Good. Our second best combination of all, and we talked about Saved by the Animals being the number one. Number two is a combination called Supreme confidence, which I highly recommend because this baby delivers. I mean, everyone can benefit from feeling and acting with more confidence, from children who are going to school for the first time to older people who are starting to lose their abilities and all of us in between. And it's got Bumblebee in it. If there's one single best essence for confidence, it is Bumblebee.
No,
Because
cool.
Bumblebee is all about accomplishing the impossible as ordinary. I mean, Bumblebee is this big bug with these tiny little wings. It shouldn't be able to fly. But for Bumblebee, it's no problem. It's Bumblebee just every day is doing really an almost impossible thing. And this gift comes through the essence to us and supports us in accomplishing. We've all got these limits in our mind about what's possible. And you know what? They're just limits in our mind. And Bumblebee says, forget that. We're going through that. Let's ignore those limits. So this Supreme Confidence formula really delivers, and I highly recommend it for people starting projects, have big things to do, people who are struggling with feeling confident in themselves, or their children are having confidence issues. It's great.
Fantastic. Improving one's sense of flow.
Okay, great. I love all these things. This is like rapid fire. It's so much fun.
Yeah,
Seal.
Oh,
Seal.
cool. I haven't tried
is
seal.
It's the essence of flow. Watching a seal underwater, they put forth this effort with their flippers, and then the flippers disappear. They become just this moving flow thing in harmony with the water, with the rolling. So seal is great for being in the flow. It's great. I use it for physical, for yoga, for swimming, for dance, for movement in the body. My wife got a minor injury the other day in her hip. We've been giving her seal because just to help that body, and it's working, help the body realign to its natural flow. So for anybody looking for physical flow or being in the flow of life, it's seal.
That's fantastic. Experiencing spiritual empowerment.
Good. Great. So I have a combination called Empower, which when I do a next label run, I'm going to rename Spiritual Empowerment, because it is these three essences. Bighorn sheep, lion, and peacock are the three in Empower. Bighorn sheep, big grounded animal living up in the clouds. So it's the integration of heaven and earth. If there's one essence for claiming and expressing your spiritual power, bighorn sheep. Lion for being in your spiritual authority. And peacock for showing your feathers, shining your light in the world, and expressing your beauty and knowing yourself as beautiful just as you are. It's not about being perfect. It's about embracing the gifts you have and not being afraid to shine your light.
That's cool. We have a beautiful big peacock, a male and a female, and we don't really know where they come from, but they just show up on our property every now and then and come hang out for a while. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, one time I was doing some work down in the lower part of our 14-acre property where our dumpsters are, and it was kind of wanting to get out. It was next to the fence, and I walked over just to talk to it, and it just flapped its wings and flew over the fence and took off. And at first it looked like it was stuck, but then I realized it wasn't stuck. It was just hanging out. It's just, I have peacock here and at the office, and I've used it a few times, but I'm going to play with it a little bit more. Here's a big one: managing worry.
Okay, yeah. I remember the first time I made the sparrow. I took the sparrow drops, and Bob Marley's song "Three Little Birds" came into my head. I adore that song, and it's where he's singing to little birds on his doorstep. Actually, the birds are singing to him on his doorstep, and the birds are singing, "Don't worry about a thing, because every little thing is going to be all right.
Yeah.
Every little thing's going to be all right. Don't worry." So this is, and when I took Sparrow, boom, that song was right in my head. And it's like, okay, this is the gift of Sparrow, to helping us let go of worry. And it's really needed right now because everybody's worrying more than they need to, because they're paying too much damn attention to the noise in the culture and in the world. And we really have to be careful about, really mindful about what information am I choosing to allow into my space. And am I doing that consciously, or is it just kind of coming in? And it's really a time for people to set boundaries and limits on your media time, on your news time. And I've made some drastic changes in that, really cutting that down. And I realize if I'm going to serve the way I need to serve, I need to be really clear and present and not distracted by the noise. Yeah,
The other thing is there's so much propaganda, you can end up worrying for hours over something that's just a hoax.
exactly. It's hard to know what the truth is.
Yeah. How about regaining contact with one's inner child and a sense of playfulness?
Yeah, great. My favorite essence for play is otter. I remember I was leading a rafting trip on the Snake River in Wyoming, and we saw some animals doing something in a side channel, and we rode to the side and crawled over on our hands and knees to see what these animals were doing. And it was a group of otters, and there was a dead tree stump in one of the side channels, and it was creating a natural water slide. And these otters were swimming, 3 or 4 of them, underwater in like in an oval, and one would surface above, come to the surface and let the water carry it right to the top of the tree stump, and it would look around and it would rest, and then it would dive on its belly. And they were like doing these belly dives in a circle. And we stayed for 20 minutes, and it's the longest time I have ever seen a group of wild animals playing. And they wore us out. After 20 minutes, it's like, okay, we got to go. And so they were just playing for the pure joy of it. No other reason.
Yeah.
And so
like
the
kids.
single best essence for like kids. And so I also have a combination essence called playtime, which has dolphin and otter and chimpanzee in it. All 3 of those. But the single best essence for play is the otter. And then I also have a domestic dog essence called retriever. And it's like, let's go and play. Like chase the ball all day long, just for the joy of it. Please throw the ball, please throw the ball, please throw the ball. I just want to play. So, and to me, this is the most important thing.
That's
Every
fantastic.
day, it's playing. This is what we are meant to do, is to play. And I am everywhere I go, and I travel around the world a lot teaching. People comment on this. I always have a tennis ball with me, and we're in the streets of Milan throwing the tennis ball back and forth. And it's like just meant to play wherever we go. And I just love it. And I just encourage people the easiest way to connect with your inner child and to find happiness is to do the things you love to do with a playful spirit. And it sounds like you do a lot of that with your stones and with your painting and with your other creative pursuits. This is it. This is what we're meant to do.
I have to. I have so much creative energy. If I don't create things, I feel like I'm going to blow up like a bomb. I find if I don't move my spirit out into some kind of creative act, I feel like I might get sick, actually. Like I feel like I'm not living true to who I am,
Wow, that's awesome. And has it been this way for a long time?
Yeah, I realized I did 7-day course on the 9 Egyptian light bodies with a super powerful shaman, artist, healer, musician, mathematician, expert in the Tao, quantum physics expert. This woman had like 7 master's degrees.
Wow.
Her name was Rowena Kryder. If you search her on the internet.
I know. I met Rowena.
Did you?
Rowena, yeah.
Well, you know who she is.
Oh, she's one of a kind.
Yeah. So I did this training, and she required that we do a mandala to come into the training. And something happened inside of me, and that broke the dam of creativity open for me. And I've probably done thousands of mandalas since. You can see them, my yearly mandalas on the wall back there. And so Rowena was a consultant to me, and I used to hire her to give me guidance on challenging things, or I would have her do readings. Sometimes I would do a piece of art that felt like I was bringing something out of me that I needed help interpreting, and I would hire her to help me interpret it. And since you know her, I'll tell you something interesting. I hadn't talked to her in several years, and one day I had a very powerful feeling inside of me that she was going to die soon. And I thought, is this just a fleeting thing? But it stuck with me for a few days. Ooh. And I'm like, it was like a voice in my head saying, you should say goodbye to Rowena. And so I just out of the blue picked up the phone and called her, and I said, hi, Rowena, it's Paul. She said, oh, hi, I haven't talked to you in a while. I said, I got to ask you something. I said, I've been having this really powerful feeling inside of myself that you're going to die soon. I said, are you getting ready to leave? She said, how intuitive of you. My work here is
Wow.
done. I'll be gone soon. And 3 months later, she died.
Wow. 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 That's a beautiful story. Wow.
Yeah. And so she, she was a powerful woman, not
Yeah,
one
she
of the
was
most
something
powerful women.
else.
One of the most powerful experiences I ever had when we were in training.
Was that in Mount Shasta?
No, that was at her house that she built by hand in, it's outside of Boulder, I think maybe Longmont.
Okay.
Amazing house. And she built it by hand herself in her
Wow.
70s.
Whoa.
Crazy. The whole house is a work of art. And I mean, the floors, the walls, everything. It
Yeah.
was
If there's a
crazy.
word for visionary, that's her. I
Yes.
mean, the embodiment of visionary. Yeah.
Yes. Very, very much so. Did we talk about enhancing creativity? Couldn't remember if you said
No,
the essence of
we
that.
didn't.
Yeah.
Creativity. Well, rabbit is a great essence for creating lots. It's a great abundant essence. Eagle, and maybe communion with God. Eagle is in communion with God. So for connecting with your divine guidance, for creating, not just creating your art or whatever it is you want to create, but creating the life you really want. And beaver is also a master. Beaver is the master and architect for building, creating the life of, from one stick at a time, building the life of your dreams. Beavers come into this area. I've been with beaver dams. They're massive. They're tall. I'm like 6 foot, taller than I am, in and so wide. These crazy structures. And when they arrive, all there is some flowing water. And how did they do that? They don't go, "Oh my God, how am I ever going to build this thing? It's impossible." No, they just do it one stick at a time. So Beaver supports us in creating the life of our dreams, creating whatever project we're working on, writing a book, starting a new business, whatever it is, and focusing on the present and doing it one stick at a time.
Perfect. So we just got two more. Problem solving. Anything when people have maybe work problems or money problems or challenges that
Problem
seem to
solving.
be
Fox.
okay.
Fox.
Fox. Okay, I haven't tried that one.
Fox. Whenever Mary and I come up across a challenge that we just can't seem to figure out, despite both of our intuitive abilities, we just go to Fox and take Fox for a few days, and we find the solution. So Fox is
Cool.
really for thinking about things outside of the box. Like there is no box. Throw out the box, Fox says. Yeah.
Cool. Finally, for younger people and anyone else, finding one sense of direction in life, which I think is important today.
It sure is. And for all of us, salmon.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah, salmon. One thing that's amazing about salmon is they have this incredible life cycle. Their eggs, they hatch way, way upstream, almost at the headwaters of a river, swim all the way downstream, spend the majority of their life in the ocean. And then, whoop, it's time to go back and spawn. And how do they find the river? Their river? With their nose. They smell their river.
Wow.
That's what leads them home. And so from the moment they find their way home, they follow their nose, and it leads them back to the source of their life, where they ultimately often end their life when they spawn. So this is the single best essence for finding your way and finding your way home, both home in kind of an earthly way and home in a spiritual way.
Very
And then
interesting.
what was the question? What was it again? For finding your direction.
Yeah, finding your
Yeah.
direction in life, or
So
if you're
owl comes to mind again. For you, third eye, or I have a series of chakra essences with animal combinations for each chakra. So the sixth chakra essence for like really giving attention and support to that ability to listen intuitively and to see and to create with what you see.
Very good.
So salmon and sixth chakra, owl, raven, crow stuff. Yeah.
Very good. Well, that's sort of the key concepts that I thought were worth exploring, because I tried
We
to.
covered a lot.
Well, I wanted
Yeah.
to think about what are the issues that most people are dealing with today, and that my clients and patients deal with, and that almost everybody deals with, because you do have quite a number of essences. And I thought, well, let me give people a chance to say, well, what's going on in my life? And then what would Daniel recommend? That way, they already may have a sense of, wow, I'm going to try these essences because I have this challenge, so I can give it a test with this. So I think we've covered a lot of great stuff. It's been a fantastic story. I've loved hearing about your relationship with nature, the animals, and how you create the essence, and interesting hearing about your son and how he grew up to be a park ranger, which seems like such an amazing natural fit for someone with that upbringing. If there's any closing comments you'd like to share, I know you have an offer for our listeners as well. You're feel free to share that. So if you want to share any closing comments, your website, and the offer for the listeners, feel free.
Great. So yeah, the offer is 10% off all the products at my website and
Great.
free shipping on 3 bottles or more. Free priority mail shipping on 3 bottles or more. The website is animalessence.com.
Great.
And yeah, just some closing words. It's like these animals have such precious gifts to offer us through the essences and just in nature. And it's like they really want to be connected with us. It's not like, and all we have to do is ask. They're like so available. And we're connected with them already. It's like we just, as all indigenous people, all the indigenous tribes have these natural connections with animals that we've lost. So these connections they're built in, they're wired, they're in our DNA. It's like part of who we are. And we've just lost that. And all we need to do to reconnect with that is to ask. And the easiest way to ask is to put yourself in wild places, to put yourself in nature. And if you're in a city, it's a park. There's a lot of animals in city parks. They may be small, but there's a lot of animals there. And so it's opening ourselves up to the healing power of nature and animals. And this is, to me, like a pillar of health. It's like essential. It's not like an optional thing. If we want to be healthy and live balanced lives of length and strength and connection, we need to be in nature as much as we can. So whether you use the essences or not doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is that you commit yourself, a part of your life, to reconnecting with nature again and again and again, because she is here to support you and you are her. Like we are nature. And the more we're in nature, the more we remember our essential oneness with the natural world and that we are the natural world. And that opens us up even more to remembering that not only are we the natural world, we are the field of awareness and pure being that gives rise to this bountiful, beautiful mystery that we're living in.
Perfect. Now to get the discount code, I think I have a note from you. Are they supposed to use Living 4D on checkout or?
Living 4D on checkout. You got it,
Okay.
Paul.
Living number 4, capital D, everybody. Definitely give these things a try, you guys. Honestly, I wouldn't have reached out to Daniel and shared this with you if I really didn't feel that these were very powerful and very, very effective. I don't share, anyone who listens to my podcast knows I don't share stuff that doesn't work. I'm not a product sales guy. I felt so supported by these essences in so many different ways as I worked with them. I almost felt like I had an obligation to tell people about them. I really did.
Wow.
It's kind of like when you're watching people suffering from eating bad food. It's hard not to tell them, hey, you'd feel a lot better if you just eat real food.
Yeah.
So thank you, Daniel. And I'll keep an eye on your website. I'll go look and order some of these other things to explore. And let's stay in touch.
Indeed. Thank you, Paul, so much for this opportunity. It's just been a joy, most of all, just to connect with you and to hear your deeply personal experiences of the essences. Like you, and I really appreciate your personal connection with them is very beautiful. So please continue to let me know what your explorations are with Cheetah in the kitchen with the dishes and other stuff like that. I'd love to know, and I'd love to stay in touch. Thank you so much for this opportunity. It's been great.
I'm sure if Cheetah works in the kitchen, Penny will be putting it in my bath water. or in my cold plunge, because I go in there a lot.
Right,
But
right.
yeah, really lovely conversation. I love just feeling your essence, and in your love for all of this. It's really a healing experience just to be able to spend time with you. And so I'll
Thank you,
close
Paul.
by saying thank you to you, and thank you to my sponsors for all your beautiful products and all your love and support. The podcast wouldn't be possible without you. And thank you to all of you for anything you buy from the sponsors. It supports the podcast, and it supports you, and it supports Mother Earth, because all my sponsors are into regenerative farming and organic farming, and all their products are sourced with natural organic products, and they put money in the hands of biodynamic farmers, organic farmers, regenerative free-range animal farming. So when you
Great.
buy from my sponsors, you're actually supporting the planet, you're supporting yourself with the best products, and you're supporting the podcast so I can keep supporting you and finding amazing people like Daniel to share with you. So lots of love. Thanks for joining us, you guys. Let's all heal together and create together and birth the new world with some butterfly. And I'll look forward to sharing something amazing with you next Tuesday. Lots of love.
Lots of love.
Thank you for listening to Living 4D with Paul Chek and today's guest, Daniel Mapel. You can find Daniel and his animal essences online at animalessence.com. Get 10% off all essences with the code LIVING4D. That's living, the number 4, the letter D. Order 3 or more bottles and get free priority mail shipping to US addresses. For our international listeners, please email Daniel directly at daniel@animalessence.com, and he will help you to place your order, as his website does not calculate international shipping. Don't forget to mention you heard him on Living 4D with Paul Chek to get your 10% discount. If you would like a free PDF copy of Daniel's book on the healing path, please email him directly at daniel@animalessence.com with the subject Healing Path Book, and he will send it to you. You can join the Wild Earth Animal Essences Facebook group at bit.ly/Animal Essences. That's bit.ly/Animal Essences, where you can ask questions and share your experiences. Catch up with Paul on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at paul.chek, on X at Paul Chek, or on his YouTube podcast channel, youtube.com/Living4D with Paul Chek. Watch more on Paul's blog at paulcheksblog.com, or visit the Chek Institute site at chekinstitute.com to find Paul's e-learning courses, advanced training programs, and to learn more about the Chek Academy. You can read the show notes and find links to all the resources mentioned in this episode at chekinstitute.com/podcast. A big thank you again to our premier sponsors, Bioptimizers, Paleo Valley, and Organifi. We could not produce this podcast without their support, and all the sponsors offer special discounts for our listeners. So please visit the show notes page at chekinstitute.com/podcast for links and details. And finally, if you enjoyed today's episode, please consider leaving us a 5-star rating and a warm review on the podcast platform of your choice. This podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, and YouTube.